home the big prize at the tail end of the championship. My name is Scott Rankin. Joining alongside of me is going to be Reese Garner to bring you all the racing action, and Reese Porsche Cup back in action with the opportunity to see these cars sliding around in the rain. Man, it's been a while since I've been talking about 992, so this one's got me excited.
Oh yeah, certainly got me excited too, Scott. Hello everyone. Good for us to be bringing you this fantastic competition. We've got 4 weeks of broadcast action to bring to you all from some of the best drivers in the New Zealand sim racing scene. This is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited for it.
Yeah, tonight, Road America as well, one that's going to challenge the drivers, but also creates plenty of overtaking opportunity. That's the big story as we head through round number 1. But remember, this isn't where we started for a ton of these drivers as well. They've had to qualify their way into this series through a series of qualifying races, split up into 2 splits, and it's only going to be the top 30 that'll be with us here tonight. Racing action is going to be incredibly tight, and the thing about Porsche Cup is, well, everyone's on the same bit of machinery. Cup Series racing, and the Porsche Cup in particular delights the world over for that very reason.
Yeah, certainly does. Spec series based on the Porsche 911 GT3 Cup. Rear engine, flat 6, rear wheel drive, no ABS or traction control for these things, and they are notoriously hard to get the hang of. So the drivers have got a lot of work to do. They've been doing a lot of work throughout the pre-qualifiers and the semi-finals through the course of the last few weeks and even a couple of months with how much lead time there's been into this event.
Yeah, of course, the format for this evening I think is incredibly important as running through it. It's going to be, race number 1 is going to be a duration of 40 minutes, and from there we'll transition across into our feature race later on. That is going to be, so it's going to be 12 laps, I believe, to kick us off in terms of the first heat, and from there it'll be 22 laps of the feature. The best part about things, though, is that it's going to be a top 12 inverted grid, and Reese, I love this sort of stuff because it challenged the best. The cream always rises to the crop in a reverse grid race, but at the same time, it just presents opportunities. You need to be aggressive, but you can't just pull the trigger at every opportunity. You've got to be clean and concise about it.
Yeah, you certainly do, and we see in the background a couple of drivers already having issues making their way around Road America here, a classic American road racing circuit. Its layout has not changed a bit since it was built and opened in 1955. It's defined by long straights and heavy braking zones, so there's plenty of opportunities to make up those positions in the reverse grid race, but you have to be careful how you play it. It's very easy to overshoot these braking zones, and judging distances from very far back is difficult to do around a place like this.
I think one of the things that never really gets discussed about this place is because of the flat nature, really, of it. There is just enough elevation to change to say that there's some out there, but it's only about 150 meters longer than Bathurst is in terms of things. So, you know, that gives you a really good perspective on what the lap length looks like, and indeed what the lap times are going to be. Lap times are a little bit different. Bathurst is a lot more quick up and across the top. And carries a lot more speed. It's about 3 to 4 seconds, I believe, slower in terms of a Porsche Cup, although I might be wrong on that one. I think they're actually quite close together in terms of the lap time. But anyway, qualifying is going to be about 15 minutes away in terms of things, but drivers have already been getting out there, turning lap times thus far. The top of the table characterized by Dylan Jordan, who's managed to get out there very early on and set quick lap times. But it's just good to be amongst some of these, you know, iconic names of the New Zealand scene, and particularly over the last couple of seasons. You know, I see Cameron Dance, Stephen McCartan, Taylor Mitchell, like I said, Dylan Jordan as well. There's quite a few names that you just sort of recognize up and down the field.
Yeah, plenty of drivers here that we've had plenty of experience in commentary in the AusNZ sim racing scene. Rob Henry being one of them there. Plenty of names that I am not too familiar with, including Hugo Allen and many other drivers in this field. So it's a nice new experience for me, Scott. I'm sure it's a nice new experience for you. We're getting exposed to this vibrant NZ esports scene for the first time.
Yeah, I always enjoy, you know, getting myself in and amongst new names as well. It's always good to see names, you know, that you're sometimes not necessarily all that familiar with as well, is the big part of it. You get to go, this is their opportunity to really show their stuff, put their name as far forward as they necessarily can. At the moment, lap times in and around the 2:07.820. In fact, practice times thus far. 2:07.820 is the fastest time from our practice session for Dylan Jordan at the top of the table. 0.02 of a second, though, separates him from Rob Henry, who sits in second place as well. So incredibly tight at the top of the order.
Yeah, but both driving for Kiwi Sim Racing, which is one of the teams that we've had plenty of experience viewing in other series in this Oceania sim racing scene. KSR always bring their A game, and they have some fantastic drivers on their roster. We're going to see if Rob Henry can gain anything on this next lap in practice, but we'll see very shortly, as he does in fact go to the top of the standings there at 2:07.702. Lovely stuff from him. Dylan Jordan not able to respond here at the end of practice, but man, you can tell already that the standard of competition in this series is incredibly high. Look at those gaps.
Yeah, there's absolutely nothing in it. A little bit about Dylan Jordan as well. This is the way that he would describe himself. He describes himself as, I love this, washed-up accountant turned parts manager for a large car dealership. So at least, he has a bit of fun and a bit of humour there. Been in and around car racing his entire life. Dad does rally and hill climb. Never had the chance to jump into a race car in the real world, but plan on buying a cheap track car at some stage. Perhaps the prize money from the tail end of this series might end up going towards an actual car. How good is that to sort of sit there and talk about?
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to be fantastic. Remember, of course, that MRP is a major sponsor of the series and provides some of the prizes, including a $60 voucher for the pole position winner in qualifying and a $200 voucher for the round winner. Let's hear from them. Well, fantastic stuff there from MRP, who, as we mentioned, providing some of the prizes for these rounds of the NZ Esports HyperFibre League, Scott. Really fantastic to see the amount of support that has come out for this series, as we've noticed that Sam Sproul has now gone to the top in practice, part of the Blackout OPR team, which is another powerhouse squad.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's just so many opportunities for the bigger teams, particularly up and down the order, to really put their best foot forwards. And for Sam, I mean, again, he's been in and around for such a long period of time, and has always made a name for himself. He's always there, always in contention. For him as well, his favourite racing moment from the sim racing world, second overall in the OSR 12-hour. Was a founding member of the Blackout OPR team, racing alongside breeding professional around sim racing. So just some of the GGs that he lists off his resume in terms of what he's done within the sim racing world.
Yeah, plenty of stuff that has been done over the course of his sim racing career, and I tell you what, he is rather quick in a Porsche Cup car from prior experience, so look out for him to be one of the contenders here tonight as he pulls off the circuit and gets going for another run here. Now, Xavier Simmons from Tauranga for Fast Lane Esports. He is also an accountant. He's also the treasurer and part of the promotions team for Kihi Speedway. He got into sim racing as a cheaper alternative to real racing. He has had real-life racing experience as a mini stock and stock car driver, so his real-life experience has been more on the oval side of things, but I'd say that turning right is just as easy as turning left.
It's just turning right with just a few extra steps, isn't it? Sorry, turning left with just a few extra steps.
Yeah.
In terms of things, yeah. I mean, you know, how good is it though to get the opportunity to really look at guys and compare? That's what I love about what we do in terms of a broadcast capability as well. We get to sit down, we get to talk about racing and really enjoy all the fruits of such an expanded sim racing cadre. When you have a look up and down the field, and a lot of the notes that have actually been handed to us about a lot of the drivers, they all list multiple different generations and genres of racing games that go through, and everyone's sort of got that story. And when you start to compare and contrast, you go, oh yeah, I played that game when you want it through this period. The racing community and the racing family like that, we're just all super passionate, right? There is not a single person that you'll ever talk to that's ever driven a sim racing game that says, I don't like racing whatsoever. We're all just big fans. Benefit for you and I is we just get to scream at a screen about it. That's you don't have to have any talent to do that.
Yeah, arguably. Yeah, but you know, like I think it just goes to show, like, sim racing is all about passion, isn't it? Everyone here has come from a place of passion and love for motor racing and being involved with it in any way possible. And that's true for all the people working behind the scenes on this live broadcast, and for us here in the commentary booth. We get into it because it's just fun.
Yeah, that it is. I was actually just taking a quick look through Russell Pepperell's actually his sim racing achievements and whatnot as well. He actually listed off something outside of the car racing atmosphere, and I always like looking at these bits and pieces. 3-time medalist in the New Zealand Track Cycling National Championships. That's not the only time I've ever seen a cycling member in the sim racing world as well. They tend to sort of group and love racing and competing. The biggest achievement that he lists, absolutely none, but his daughter thinks he does real racing, so that counts double, I think.
Yeah,
give that
absolutely.
Man a trophy now.
Yeah. The cars may not be real, but the racing is, as as my good mate Jimmy Broadbent loves to say. But yeah, I love that. I love the fact that, you know, these guys are bringing their families into it as well. You know, I think you know, from our perspective, doing all of this commentary and being involved to such a level in the esports side of things and shouting at pixels, essentially, sometimes you forget, and sometimes it's difficult to communicate, that these are real people behind all of the pixels. These are real guys racing in their homes or in a sim rig in their office, what have you, but they all have lives outside of this, and they all do this for the love of it. Some of them have the option and the privilege of being able to do sim racing at a semi-professional level, but yeah, largely it all comes from that place of passion I was talking about.
100%, and I tell you what, time to get into a little bit more of the behind the scenes and the bits and pieces that are going on tonight. Road America is a tough, technical, and tricky track, and you're going to be taking us through it, Reese.
I am indeed. Road America, an incredible classic circuit, as I pointed out, opened in the mid-1950s and one of the original sports car purpose-built road courses in the United States, a lap with our safety car. The run into turn one, very difficult. It's a nice overtaking spot, but the corner's very fast. Got to be careful not to bump a wheel into the grass. Then there's the run through what is called turn two, because American circuits place marshal points and use them to define nine corners, and then you're through turn 3 and on to the straight here. Going through the moraine sweep, which is this small sort of meander to the right and to the left, and then you're gearing up, you're psyching yourself up for the run down into turn 5. You can use all of the tarmac there, almost be on that curb as long as you keep 2 wheels on it. Lots of curb being able to be used for runoff. That's going to be one of the prime overtaking spots on this track. Easy to lose the rear end across the crest there as you come into turn 6. Keep an eye out for that as well. Then the hurry downs. This is a right-hand kink that is taken at nearly full throttle in almost any race car. Maybe a little tap of the brakes required to keep the weight on the fronts, and then all the way down the hill into the very tight left-hander there, coming through to the carousel, which is the prime spot for showing just how well handling any car is. This corner just seems to keep going and going and going. You more than double back on yourself as you make your way through this corner, and understeer on exit is going to be terrible for you. And then there's the kink. My goodness, what a corner this is. There's a railway line that runs just beyond the wall, so there's not much runoff available for the drivers. Fastest corner on the circuit. It is terrifying, no matter what car you're in. And then at the kettle bottoms, you get on the brakes for Canada corner. Another prime overtaking opportunity. This corner is faster than it looks, and you can use all of the curb on the exit there to get your run through Bill Mitchell Bend uphill, just balancing the throttle through here, and then switch back over to the left side of the circuit for the run into the final corner. And this is so important, this acceleration point. It defines pretty much your entire lap because you got the whole start-finish straight to come. And the uphill run to the start-finish line, that is a lap of Road America. Prime racing territory in any machine, Scott.
It is, and it's just such a cultural icon, particularly for the Australian, New Zealand sim racing communities as well. The amount of championships that have been decided at this place. Tonight, it's going to be playing host to the opening round of the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League on behalf of Chorus HyperFibre. HyperFibre being the fastest internet available with up to 8 gigabytes per second upload and download bandwidth to ensure you avoid lag, no matter who's using your household internet. Keep your home future-proofed using HyperFibre, and the business up to date with glowing data needs as well. Plenty of capacity, incredibly low latency. It's HyperFibre broadband services are keeping us running here tonight. Want to say a big shout out as well to the round sponsor for tonight as well, MRP, Mannon Racing Products. I know a few drivers that have been supported over the years by these guys as well. Based in Auckland, they're your New Zealand suppliers of your sim racing brands, Gomez Sim Industries, Simtrax, Simicube, V&M Simulations, and all the rest as well. Started as a real racing store for real life racing, and they've expanded over to the sim racing world during the COVID lockdown. Tailor-made turnkey rigs to suit your budgets and needs, your 80/20s chassis, add-ons, monitor stands, dash displays, and accessories. If you're looking for something sim racing world, tonight's round sponsor is Mannon Racing Products. So we want to say a big shout out and a big thank you to everyone that has come on board to support the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League as well. I think it's a big key race because it gives us a lot of opportunity to talk about the real guys that are about to go racing and give us the action as well.
Yeah, indeed. mrpsimracing.co.nz is the site for MRP. Make sure to pay them a visit, as well as HyperFibre as well. All right, qualifying is on, Scott, and this is a site we're very familiar with. A big queue of cars making their way out of the pits here in qualifying. And the reason the drivers are so close together and just chomping at the bit to get going on this outlap is because Road America, with its long straights, is an incredibly sensitive slip streaming circuit. You have to have a car in front of you punching that hole through the air for you to get a boost of straight line speed, because God knows you need it around here.
That's it. Lots of long straights. The downforce, it does definitely matter. It's important to make sure that you're going to get some downforce on the car. It's important to make sure that you place the car in the right positions. But more than that, it's quite critical. You've got to make sure that you get that toe. It's going to be worth, I reckon, somewhere in the realm of 3 to 3/10 minimum, all the way up to somewhere in the realm of 3/4 of a second. What are you going to lose if you don't get the downforce to that front splitter? It's probably only going to be in the realm of 1 to 2/10. So overall, gain at least of about half a second over the lap. So making sure that you get the right toe from the right person is important. But first and foremost, get the tyres up to temperature. These Porsche Cup cars, they are stone cold tyres on lap number 1 of qualifying. New system as well, which is very, very important. Cars have been updated over the break of the off-season. Clutches, they're now sometimes just a little bit less accurate, adds a little bit of variability. Pulling these cars off the grid, not all the time you're going to be able to set an exact clutch pipe point and go with that. Something to work on there. And the other critical update when we get to our standing starts later on, Reese, the cars are now going to have a simulated formation lap for any standing start cars, including the Porsche Cup.
Yep, so preconditioned tyres. They won't be completely stone cold and have to be run in for a few corners before they really activate anymore. But that might not mean all that much, because remember, as you mentioned, Porsche Cup cars, they don't have tyre warmers, so the tyres will still be pretty cold when things get started in the race. First round of hot laps is about to start here. Dylan Jordan leading the charge across the line. We'll see what the number 21 for Kiwi Sim Racing can do here. Hard on the brakes, turning in nice and early for the first corner here, and absolutely nailing that exit curb. Lovely to see.
Yeah, so nice and accurate. This first lap's not going to be their flying lap. It's not going to be where they're going to set their fastest time, but it'll probably be lap 2 or 3. Given it's a longer circuit, there's a lot of time to actually bring the tire up. Full out lap, remember, as well. So it's about it's not quite the full 207 out lap. It's about a 204, 205 out lap. That does take time away from the qualifying session as well. Total number of laps these guys are going to get 6 to 7. So there's not a lot of opportunities, and you can overheat the tires. Making sure if you have an off, you'll pinch a brake and your lap's not good, look for somewhere in the queue to feed yourself back in, particularly if it's around somebody's similar speed, so you can get a nice little tow off them, cool the tires off, try and take some of the energy out. Already mistaken a car wide down at turn 5. Couple of mistakes down there as well.
Yeah, indeed. Plenty of drivers having trouble feeling out the brakes here. Remember, these cars don't have anti-lock brakes or traction control, so it's all down to your inputs, and you have to make sure that your brake pressure is perfect for those heavy braking zones. Exited the carousel here for Dylan Jordan, and it's looking like a nice clean lap so far. And it's all about getting that banker, right? You mentioned that the tyres do take a couple of laps to really get into their prime phase, so as long as you don't make a mistake on this outlap, you'll at least have something to put in the bank on the off chance, I should say, that you won't be able to get a solid lap later on.
Yeah, that's it. Just keep putting it in the bank. You know, then you can go out and you can press on. You just got something to rely on, isn't it? Something to keep in the back pocket. First lap's been reasonably accurate. There's not been too much of a wiggle around from Dylan Jordan's rear tyres. I'm just having a look. I just saw Daniel Patterson run wide down at Canada Corner, so he's down there and in the barrier is going to have a very, very difficult qualifying session, but I think this is going to be a good lap. These front two on this pack as well have also pulled out a little bit of a margin on everyone that's sort of chasing them. Ewan Baker was the second driver across the line. Wasn't off track on that lap, though, for Dylan Jordan. Didn't count. Ewan's going to set the first lap time representative here, and he manages to go straight in with a 207.939, straight into the 7s. However, Hugo Allen, big lap, 207.4, straight at the top of the timing sheets.
Yeah, brilliant stuff from Hugo Allen and Ewan Baker. If you're watching this and you're completely new to iRacing, which is the racing simulation software we're using, in a qualifying session, you cannot dip a wheel off into the grass. Otherwise, you'll get an incident point. And iRacing's incident point system is what's used to define your safety rating when you're driving in ranked multiplayer events. But this is an independent hosted event, so it's not going to affect your safety rating if you run off the track in qualifying, but you will get that off-track 1x, which is going to invalidate your lap time. That's a very important thing to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think one of the things, I'm just having a quick look at Hugo Allen as well, looks like he didn't get any tow on that one, so that's quite a representative lap time. There's no sort of real major benefit for him in terms of where he is in the track. Rob Henry's just ahead of him. He just had made a little bit of a mistake as they come down and through turn 8 before they come through the carousel. Ran in a little bit hot, pinched the front brakes, sort of had to check up and couldn't really apply that throttle again. And that's why you're going to see him back out. Remember what I said? Have to keep the tyres in that optimal range. Don't overcook them. Henry actually pulled out, made sure he's cooling off those tyres. I'm seeing Taylor Mitchell doing the same. So again, everyone's just taking the opportunity just to reset, take the edge away from those tyres, make sure that we're ready for another flying lap.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that Connor Brody has a big dent in his rear bumper there. It looks like someone ran into the back of him, but he's pressing on. Yeah, with regards to temperatures, the track temperature is actually quite cool from what we're used to at Road America. It's rising, but it's at about 26 degrees Celsius at the moment on the tarmac, so it will be very easy to cool those tires back down when you back off. It also means that there's a bit more of a margin for tires heating up, and you won't be able to overheat them as hard. Ewan Baker going back to the top, but Hugo Allen immediately takes it back from him once again. Looks like we have two big contenders here tonight. Dylan Jordan has set a time that was only good enough for third until about a second ago. Now he's down to fifth. Connor Brody and Stefan McCartan have put in some fantastic times to get onto the provisional second row.
Yeah, so it's all starting to shake up a little bit. Remember what I said about those tire temperatures, just getting them into the range. So there's the really, really good time starting to really come out. 2:07.8, a lot of the field running around at that time. So all of a sudden it just makes Hugo Allen's first lap time look really, really good. Not only did he make that first lap time look good, Ewan Baker went through and went, all right, that's your banker. Went and matched it. Went out there, did a 2:07.4. Hugo Allen, though, he's a little bit of a superstar. He just immediately went and took 0.3 out of his best lap. 2:07.1. Best time we've seen from both practice and qualifying thus far throughout the session. The thing I'm now seeing, though, Reese, track temperature from the practice session climbed just a little bit. We're up another 2 degrees Celsius at this point in time. In-sim timing, very, very crucial, 9:45 a.m. We're pressing on towards a 10 a.m. time. That track temp is going to continue to come up. What does the Porsche like to do when the track temperature comes up? Gets a little bit more loose in the rear. So that could give us some really nice drama-filled racing. Always down for a drama-filled race.
Absolutely, and I think one of the drivers who's had a lot of experience here is right on screen. Cameron Dance has driven Porsche Cup for many years in the sim world, and he's someone I'm very familiar with on the commentary side as well. I used to work alongside him for pretty much every other broadcast a few years ago. He's had quite the career driving for Orbit Drop Bear Motorsport at the moment, and he's got plenty of real-life experience as well in junior categories. He was the champion twice in the Kart Sport NZ Superkart National Championship in the 125cc class, and he was also a teammate of Liam Lawson in Formula First, which is a pretty fantastic thing to put on the resume. Nowadays, he works at Goodman Fielder and Kiwi Simulators, so he's still involved quite a bit in the sim racing world, is Cameron Dance. And if there's one thing that we can say about him, it's that he knows how to race. He is a mad defender, so if he can work his way up in the field, he's going to be the cork in the bottle. It'll be very tough to get past him.
I don't know if you know this, Reese. You'll probably absolutely, as soon as I start talking about this fact about Cameron Dance, you'll go, yep, absolutely. Of course, Scott's going to bring that one up. My favourite fact about Cameron Dance, loves the IndyCars.
Yep.
Yep. You knew exactly where I was going with that one. There's two cars in the sim I really, really like. Unfortunately, it's the older generation Porsche Cup car. That's my preferred one. Hey, everyone's got to have a preference, right? That's my preferred Porsche Cup car. But if it's not the Porsche Cup car, it's the Indy car. Cameron Dance loves his oval racing in an Indy car, and I think the bigger one out of that, 2 times Major Series Indy 500 winner. 2023 Classic IndyCar Series, 3rd place over in the States. So that is a really, really competitive field, by the way, as well. Knows his way around, and I think has one of the coolest looking simulators that you'll see anywhere as well. Nothing quite like climbing into Cam Dance's tub.
Yeah, indeed. Cameron is one of those drivers that still runs a hyperstimulator sim racing chassis. They were very big in the Australian sim racing scene many years ago, and I believe they're still around. Cameron Dance holding on to his, and it's always entertaining seeing him, usually with a 2E in hand, driving around the circuit. Meanwhile, here's Corey Lazarus making his way into 5th place. He's got a lot to go on here from his previous Porsche Cup racing experience, driving of course for Blackout OPR. He was back in Season 2 of 2024, the official iRacing Porsche Cup outright global champion in the fixed setup series, so he's got a lot of pace at hand here.
Yeah, a lot of pace and a lot of experience as well, and that says he's on form, particularly at the moment. in these cars. Very, very critical to be coming in with a lot of performance. The big thing, though, that's changed since that time period, there was a tyre model update. When we actually got ourselves the wet weather tyre, they actually went through and tuned up the dry weather tyre as well for these cars, sort of adjusted some of the physics, adjusted the dynamics of it. It's created something a little bit different. Whether or not he's made the adjustment across that new tyre, of course he's going to be jumping in, of course he's going to be in there and practicing whenever he possibly can. But sometimes when something new changes like that, not everyone adjusts to it as quickly as you possibly can. So that'll be something to keep an eye on. Generally drivers as well that have driven that car for such a long period of time. And this car as well, not necessarily the most popular car in terms of iRacing. When it first came out, was very, very popular. Everyone loved the tyre model, created some intense racing. Then it went through a couple of changes and they weren't necessarily the popular changes that they're coming. Wet weather tyres really started to bring this car back to the fore. Remember, runs around in the Nürburgring Endurance Challenge and it always creates interesting racing over there as well. 3 minutes left in terms of qualifying race, which means we're running out of time. The critical factor as well tonight, hard cut at the end of qualifying. Heat racing format, if you are on a flying lap when that checkered flag flies, session ends. No opportunity to finish that lap. Very important to note.
Yeah, that's something that the drivers will all be very familiar with. There's two types of servers that you can set up for hosted events in iRacing, and basically if you have a heat format in the session or it's a solo qualifying session, either or, then there is that hard cut to the end of the session. If it was a single race session with open qualifying, then the drivers would likely be able to complete their lap after the timer hits 0, but they won't be able to do so today. James Jordan, let's see as he comes to the end of the lap if traffic is going to be a problem for him. He's currently in 6th place, and all he has to do is make up 100th of a second, and he'll beat Xavier Simmons for the last position in the top 5. Let's see how he goes here at the end of the lap, bouncing over the curbs at Bill Mitchell Bend. This car doesn't always like curbs. Fortunately, Road America has plenty of flat ones. Ewan Baker just improved, meanwhile, back into 2nd place, and it looks like James Jordan is done with that run of laps. And with how long a lap is here at Road America, he won't be able to get back out and set another one.
No, and so he's opted to make sure that he's done a pit lane entry practice. There's not necessarily any required pit stops here tonight, but if fuel dictates from our feature race, you could see the drivers diving into the lane. Tyres across a sort of a 22-lap race, there is going to be a little bit of fall off. The tyre model does wear in the Porsche Cup, but what happens is it's not necessarily out-and-out lap pace, it's the stability in the car. The car will wiggle around a lot more, so that's something to keep an eye on, keep wondering about as well, and don't discount the effect that the fuel balance has on this car as well. Sometimes it could get just a little bit tricky. If you've got your springs set for that high fuel run, your low fuel pace is going to suffer as a result. So Dan Patrick at the moment still looking for a little bit of an improvement towards the tail end of his qualifying run. 1 minute, sort of anyone that's down at turn 5 at the moment, there's a bunch of cars that are down that section.
Whoa.
Not going to finish their current lap.
Antal Rafael Sabo. Just an incredible time that's just been set there. He was all the way down in about 25th or so, one of the drivers that hadn't set a representative time in qualifying yet. He's just gone to 2nd. He's only a 10th off Hugo Allen's provisional pole time. So, hey, if you do it within the time, then sure, let's go for it. A bit late in the session to be making those kinds of moves up the field, but hey, fantastic job from Antal Rafael Szabo. He's putting himself up into the contender spot.
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a crack at it, didn't he? The big thing for me is there's only 2 valid lap times in the session for him. The first one was a 2:09.572. He's improved by 2.3 tenths. That is a massive improvement. I wonder what went on with that 2:09 lap. Not necessarily representative, I would say, in terms of that one, but he's made mistakes right across the duration in terms of the qualifying performance. The big thing for him is if he's got that sort of pace, being trapped at the back end of qualifying was going to really struggle. He was going to be on the back foot from the very get-go, gets the lap in at the last possible moment. All right, I wonder if the nerves have sort of settled or maybe they've gone up a notch for him.
Yeah, potentially. I always get that feeling. If I do well in qualifying, suddenly it switches over to the race and I'm like, oh dear, I'm starting well. The pressure is on.
That's it. Qualifying now in the books, and it's going to be our pole position winner from round number 1. Hugo Allen manages to go ahead and take out pole position. Antal Rafael Szabo is going to be starting off alongside of him on the front row. Ewan Baker for Kiwi Sim Racing will be starting off at row number 2 before the first of the horde of blackout OPR cars. Stefan McCartan will be the first of those. Corey Lazarus, the teammate, will be starting off at row number 3. Alongside of him will be Xavier Simmons. James Jordan and Connor Brody are going to be rounding out row number 4, and the back end of the top 10, Russell Pepperell and Rob Henry.
Hamish Clellan's going to line up in 11th place alongside Dylan Jordan, with Cameron Dance, lucky 13th, starting alongside Sam Sproul. Then we got Taylor Mitchell and Hayden Kirk on row 8, Dan Patrick and Brendan Partridge, 17th and 18th, rounding out the top 20, Tyler Williams and Nico Cordier.
And we'll get across to Corey Crisson, Luke Bradley, Daniel Patterson, Billy Rowley, Dan Turner, Mandela Pluck is going to round out our field tonight. We've got time for a very quick interview with tonight's pole position winner, Hugo Allen. Reasonable time to start the season off. Very, very happy to set off our first Manor Racing Products pole position, mate. How are you feeling about getting that one?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having me. Good lap. It was all right. It could have been better. It's always hard at this track to pull the whole lap together, but just did the job, and it was good enough to just put Antel in the end. So happy as well that it wasn't done with a slipstream. So yeah, but as I say, she's a tricky racetrack to pull the whole 3 sectors together. But just happy to be here.
Mate, in terms of things, 12 laps is going to be this first race that we've got on the cards here. A little bit of a shorter sprint, and then we're going to be inverting that top 12. Goal is to get down to turn number 1, cover yourself off a little bit. You think you can sort of set yourself up really nicely. How are you feeling in terms of standing start as well? Changes to this car make it a little bit more tricky.
Yeah, I thought obviously the updates that iRacing have done haven't made it easy for anyone. But in that it's just changing. But it's something that we're all dealing with. We've all got to manage. So we'll see how it goes. I can't tell you if it's going to be good or bad until I actually do it. So,
mate, and so sounds like the confidence levels are up. Is there anyone you'd want to say thank you at the top of the show to for getting you to this point and helping you along the way?
For sure, Barry at Manor Racing Products has helped me a lot through my sim racing career. And also my real racing career, so big thanks to him, and then thanks to you guys for putting the series on, because it's good to see a really well supported series actually on happening on iRacing and a New Zealand series as well. So thanks to you boys for putting the series on and making it all possible.
Thanks very much for your time, Hugo. Get down, get set, and get ready for that first race, eh?
Thanks, mate.
Well, brilliant job.
So, Reese, I mean, he sounds confident in terms of things. He sounds like he's right there and definitely feeling quite comfortable. And, look, I mean, the run down to turn 1, it's difficult here. Very, very difficult run to turn 1.
Yeah, certainly is. It's a pretty long run to turn 1 that we currently have here at Road America, so we do need to keep that in mind. I think with the amount of runoff at the first turn as well, it's going to be interesting to see just how many people make it through. But I think the big point we're going to be looking at is turn 5, the heavy braking zone.
Well, ladies and gents, your grid once again. Hugo Allen from pole position will be off alongside of Antel Rafael Sabo. We'll cut through them nice and quickly. Ewan Baker from Stefan McCartan on row number 2. Row number 3 is Corey Lazarus versus Xavier Simmons. So they'll try and line themselves up. James Jordan and Connor Brody on row number 4. Row number 5, Russell Pepperell and Rob Henry going to round out the back end of the top 10. Row number 6 is going to be the 11th and 12th place cars of Hamish Clellan and Dylan Jordan. 13th and 14th. Cameron Dance a little bit further back than he necessarily would have liked. Same for Samuel Sproul out of 14th. 15th and 16th will be Taylor Mitchell and Hayden Kirk Reese.
Yep, indeed, they will. Then we get Dan Patrick, Brendan Partridge, Tyler Williams and Nico Cordier rounding out the top 20, as we said. And then Corey Crossan and Luke Bradley, 21st and 22nd, followed by Patterson, Rowley, Turner and Pluck to round out our 26 cars to be taking to the start here today. They're almost all on the grid at the moment, some of them waiting for the last moment here to get onto the grid, because sometimes you can get the tyres a bit more in the optimal temperature range if you leave it until the last couple of seconds before we get to the start here. Well, the timer is rapidly ticking down, Scott. We're about to get lights up, and it looks like everyone's on the grid and ready to go. The NZ Esports HyperFibre League getting ready to go in just a few moments' time.
Yeah, that's it. Revs are going to start to rise. We're into the griddings phase now. The run down to turn number 1 for the first time for the NZ HyperFibre League, and it's going to be a reasonable getaway from the front row for Hugo Allen. How are the drivers behind him fared? He's managed to break the slipstream on the run down to turn number 1. Ewan Baker's going to start to get swamped. Here comes Corey Lazarus, who got a good getaway from row number 3. Starts to shove the nose in. They will be 3 wide. He backs out just a little bit. Thought about shoving the nose in. McCartan's going to go around the outside and turn number 1.
Oh.
Baker gets squeezed. Just barely gets out the other side, and Stephen McCartan squeezes his way into 3rd spot.
Good stuff there from McCartan. Great run round the outside in turn 1. A little bit of drama back in the field, seeing an excellent exit from turn 3 for Sam Sproul, who's steadily trying to work his way forward. Baker's now under pressure from Corey Lazarus, and they're side by side. There's Sproul now up into 11th spot from 14th. A really good run there on the first lap. Baker going to try and get back past Lazarus here. Corey has to go wide and onto the grass there at turn 5, and this is where we might see some drama back in the field, but I'm going to retract that statement. Looks like a nice clean start through at least the first part of the lap for our field.
Yeah, they've managed to get all the way down through turn number 5 on the opening lap. There's a little bit of wheel-to-wheel action, and it's going to result in contact. And now it's the run down the hill for Rob Henry, so it had to go back defensive. We'll try and slide it back down the inside as he managed to go out the other side. No, first spins of the night, and it's going to be multiple cars in the barriers. And it looks like Connor Brody's been impacted. James Jordan tumbling down the field as well. They were both inside the top 10, now find themselves outside the 20s.
Oh, that's such a shame there. Rob Henry trying to get the position over James Jordan. They make contact, and Henry spun across the rest of the field as they made their way through the corner. Not much time to react, but our top 2 have continued to get away here. Until Rafael Zabo, with his brilliant pace at the end of qualifying, has translated that into a solid race behind Hugo Allen at the front of this field. He is piling the pressure on, and they got a good gap back to the battle from 3rd to 6th.
Yeah, so made a reasonably good jump, and in terms of opening lap pace as they start to bring the tyres up to temperature, the run up the hill now for Antal Rafael Sabo. He's going to try and start to build the margin on Hugo Allen. Can he manage to get alongside? I think he's just trying to fill the mirror as they get down into turn number 1. Might target a run at him as they get down the hill into turn 5. Reasonable run through 1. He's a lot closer than he was just before as well. So now this is going to present an opportunity. He's got to get the drive off when they get to turn number 3. But the opening lap navigated, and already the rear end of the number 17 Porsche of Hugo Allen, your pole sitter, starts to wiggle around. That's some heat in the rear tyres, and he might start to ail at the back end of a 12-lap heat race as well.
Yeah, indeed. Got to be careful of the way the car changes as Ewan Baker now versus Corey Lazarus. These guys have not left each other alone since the very start. There's Lazarus making the move, and oh no, he's lost the rear end and has ended up losing a further position to Xavier Simmons, who gets into the top 5. Couple other drivers running a bit wide off turn 5 there themselves. Man, look at this pack back here. There's racing absolutely everywhere you look.
Yeah, and it's 4th through to 6 now. Ewan Baker was managing to go with Stephen McCartan, hasn't managed to do so. Then it's a little bit of a gap. Sam Sproul's ahead of the next pack. He's ahead of Cameron Dance. Dance has managed to grab a bunch of spots out of that opening lap bingle when they got down here to turn number 8. And here they go once again. Times it down the inside. 3 wide yet again. Are you kidding me? Very, very early on. Mandela Pluck is the car that spun in the background and off and into the grass. He's going to go tumbling to the tail end of the field. Don't forget you got Jordan and Connor Brody was still trying to cut their way back through. Brody just manages to reconnect himself to the back end of that pack. James Jordan sits 22nd after he started this race, right up inside the top 10 and 7th spot.
Yeah, and Rob Henry won't be too happy with how things have gone himself. Started in 10th place and was looking for some great gains on the first lap. He's currently mired back in the pack here, chasing down Billy Rowley and Tyler Williams, and he's trying his best to defend as well. There's just in front of him, Nico Cordier and Hayden Kirk coming together. Kirk losing a couple of spots there, and when you've got an angry pack of cars behind you, that's the worst thing to happen. You don't want to be set off your rhythm, because in that final sequence of the lap, the corners come so thick and fast that if you're offline, you will get swamped.
And have a look at the run out of the final corner. Somebody just dipped a tyre off as they come out of the last corner, and now they are going to get swamped on the runner up the hill. Rob Henry, I think it might have been, it was a little bit deeper in terms of the pack. Jordan's trying to build himself a run as they run down to number 1. He's managed to get by Daniel Patterson in the last couple of corners or so. The big thing I think at the moment for this one, Reese, is if you're not being aggressive in this pack, you're going backwards. The problem with that is they're all going to start dropping out, and Mandela Pluck runs it wide, finds the tyre barriers at turn 1.
Oh dear, yeah, a little bit of contact there as he was trying to make the move up the inside. Sometimes in these cars, when you're up the inside on the exit and make contact with the car you're trying to pass, you end up getting spun on the exit, and that's exactly what happened to Pluck there. Fortunately, no one else got involved. Our top 2 continuing to fight tooth and nail for the lead of this race, and let's not forget about the invert for the next race. Remember, the top 12 will be inverted. Currently 12th place occupied by Hamish Cleland, and he's not up under much pressure. Goodness gracious, yeah, Brendan Partridge and Billy Rowley tumbling down the order.
Yeah, they just come together as they went up and underneath the Corvette bridge as well, so it's not settled in anywhere, and you just saw him in the back of that shot as well. They were just getting together, and unfortunately off the stick again. Is that what the third? We're 3 laps into this race, and every single lap we've gone down to turn 8, somebody's been 3 wide. Somebody up and down the field is 3 wide. I think that's going to set the aggression levels for the remainder of the season. Everyone is squabbling for every little bit of real estate, every little bit of track as they come around the carousel. How good is this? Partridge and Bradley are still 2 wide. Mandela Pluck is forced to sit and watch in the background. He's going to run wide at the kink. Whoa. This is for the tail end of the field. They're still 2 wide as they come out the other side. No, you don't. That's absolutely mental, boys. 2 wide at the kink really goes well.
Mandela Pluck is moving that car around, isn't he? He's looking very aggressive. Unfortunately, it hasn't paid off for him so far, but maybe if he can get some clean running, he'll be able to elevate himself up by the end of the race. Finally, they fall back into single file again, but you saw there, right at the kink, that's one of the things you got to look out for. Drivers running side by side ahead of you, they compromise each other through the fastest corners, and that allows you to get the run that you need to get the position. Well, we'll see with what Sabo will be able to do here versus Hugo Allen, as Stefan McCartan just took the fastest lap of the race so far. Interesting to note, because he doesn't have any slipstream aiding him. He's on a charge right now.
One of the biggest things, though, Reece, I'm just having a look at it. The 2 cars ahead of me were actually faster in the most recent lap. That says they've picked up an incident point somewhere and trimmed that time off. So McCartan's the only driver that set a valid lap time on that lap. But the cars up ahead, if you have a look, Hugo Allen and Antel Rafael Sabo, I do wonder whether or not these guys are Baker's gone around.
Oh dear, looks like he was either fighting with Lazarus or Simmons at that point, and unfortunately a tap and a spin around, and I don't know if that right rear wheel was all that connected to the car. We'll have to wait and see. Dylan Jordan, meanwhile, making a little bit of contact there with Taylor Mitchell as he makes his way past. That opens the door for Hamish Cleland to make his way into the top 10. And tell you what, all of this battling here has made the coveted 12th place, which is pole position for race 2, right up for grabs. Corey Crosson's still holding on to it, but Cordier, Baker, Patrick, Kirk, they are all in the fight for it. Crosson looking a bit alone on track at the moment, but the majority of the drivers behind him seem faster.
One of the things I'm just sort of thinking about is Ewan Baker will be sitting there and going, I'm really, really annoyed that I've been spun around here, and but there's an opportunity. You're right. I think pole position for race number 2 is something he's got to be aware of, or at least towards the front couple of rows. I don't think he can miss out on points. If there's an opportunity to grab points in this opening race of the season, I think you're going to have to take that opportunity to go ahead and try and grab some of those. And Cleland's doing a reasonable job to just be sitting outside the top 10 at this point in time. How good's the run from our front 2, though, as well? They're starting to really just step away from Stefan McCartan. Now Hugo Allen's having to defend. There's a 3.5 second margin in terms of our race lead at the moment, but they're making that intentional decision from Antal Rafael Sabo to not fight. He's not squabbling, Reece. These two are actually working together. I think the plan is, with this one, make it a 2-horse race. When it's definitely a 2-horse race, we'll fight for it in the last 3 laps. So I think this is a definite decision from Sabo.
Yeah, I think so. They just need to look after each other for the time being, as long as they don't fall under pressure from those behind. So they'll keep running as they are, maybe trade positions a couple of times, but oh, here we go. Zabo's going for it. Down at turn 5, draws alongside Hugo Allen, and our pole sitter is shuffled back to second. That was a textbook dive at the 5th turn.
I wonder whether or not Hugo also made the decision, yeah, let's not fight this one too hard. We've got a lot longer that we can necessarily fight over it. Huge battle as well on the run down to turn number 5 now as well, back for 6th position. Sproul's just trying to defend off from Cameron Dance as it currently stands. Russell Pepperell's doing a reasonable job. He's slotted himself back into that 7th spot now, so he's plus 6 spots. How about Sproul though? He's plus 8. He's done a really, really good job out of 14th on the grid. Pepperell was all the way back, I think, in 19th in terms of the grid as well, so he's plus 11. There's a number of drivers in this pack that have not only managed to get away nice and cleanly race, I think the big factor is they got through that pack early on, survived. Are they quick? They're not front running quick, but they're reasonably quick enough. They can let the toe sort of pull them away, and they've just made decisions. Just pull the trigger, be nice and clean, nice and concise, run away a little.
Yeah, for sure. And worth pointing out, Corey Crossan, the car with the most positions gained in this entire field, and he's still the man sitting in 12th place. Invert that. That's pole position for race 2. We'll keep an eye on this battle here. 6th place at the moment for Sam Sproul as he tries to recover from a couple of run-ins that he's had. Cameron Dance and Russell Pepperell right behind him. 2 very successful, very fast drivers chasing him down. I think these 3 are very evenly matched. This could provide some great entertainment in the laps to come.
Yeah, this is going to be creating a really, really interesting battle as well. For Corey Crossan, driver out of Blenheim for Sigma Sim Sport, has had a bunch of karting experience as well, bunch of wins. Best for him was 2nd at the South Islands in 2020, but he's driven so many different disciplines right across his sim racing career. He's an engineer by day, sim racer by night. That's what you like to hear. Sits in 12th spot, huge opportunity for him. I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, let's see now that Ewan Baker has actually gotten past Nico Cordia, whether or not Baker will be able to have a run at him here. It's all about the exits, as you've mentioned before, Scott. Turn 3 is one of the most important corners on the racetrack for that. As long as you nail the exit, like it looks like Baker has, he is within slipstream range. He'll at least be able to get a bit closer to Corey Crossan by the time they get to turn 5.
Yeah, starting to make some time back up as Ewan Baker, and this is going to be quite critical, targeting the pole position potentially for race number 2. Swings it wide, forced a little bit of a cuffer from Corey Crossan as they entered down into turn number 5. Now he'll try and set him up. It's just about flowing the car through this section of the racetrack, making sure that he's close enough, making sure that he's just about in the opportunity. Not quite close enough down here at turn number 8 to have a real big dive. Keep an eye on the battle pack in the background of these guys as well, because surely there'll be somebody about to have a dive. Yeah, it's Rob Henry. Rob Henry's just pulled the trigger to try and slide down the inside of Tyler Williams. They'll run it very, very wide out on the asphalt on the exit. And that just gives Tyler Williams the inside when they get to the carousel. Henry's going to have a go at him around the outside. He swings it wide for the diamond line through the middle of the corner. Tries to cut it back to the second apex. Leans on the front left tyre quite hard as well. And the big thing that we haven't even discussed at this point, we said tyre heat, tyre wear might be a big thing. It is such a heavy left-hand side tyre wear track, isn't it, Reese?
Oh yeah, the carousel is one of my favourite corners on this track for precisely that reason. The drivers that look after their tyres through that corner will be the ones that come out on top, and there's multiple lines possible through it. You can stick all the way to the inside, all the way through, or you can take that diamond line that we just saw. And meanwhile, looks like Ewan Baker has managed to get past Corey Crossan and up into 12th spot. Not too sure exactly where that move was made, but Baker is steadily on the recovery here. He's got quite a gap ahead to Hamish Cleland though, so I think further positions gained in the race might be out of the question for him, but if he can keep the rest of them behind him, he's got pole for race 2.
Yeah, that's a big, big factor. He's just got to make sure he doesn't make any mistakes from this end of the race out. This is the next sort of little battle on the track, as well as Lazarus, I think, is trying to chase down and go after 4th spot at the moment. I'm just keeping an eye on James Jordan as well. Big opportunity for him. He's just trying to look to harass Dan Patrick as it currently stands, and Hugo Allen goes for the move, gets the job back done to change hands for our race lead yet again. That is going to cost them a little bit of time. McCartan is coming back to these guys just. So if they keep this up, McCartan will make that time back, but I can tell you Jordan's really going to about to have a crackdown at turn number 5, by the way. Need to keep an eye out for that one. Dan Patrick on the run down into... Yeah, gets the job done. So he's just gotten down the inside of Dan Patrick down here at turn number 5. Next opportunity will be Hayden Kirk. Remember, this was one of those cars that was spun on, lap 1 down at turn 8. So he's driven through from about 24th back to 16th. Yeah.
Yeah, that's an incredible recovery. Let's see what Hayden Kirk can do to hold on to the pace here. His lap times have not quite been up to where he'd want them to be. His last lap was a 209.7 versus 208 for James Jordan, and he's the only driver running a 208 in that entire pack down to 19th. So there's plenty of pace at hand here for the number 24. We'll see if he can get past and up into 15th spot. Meanwhile, up through the kink and down to the kettle bottoms, one of the fastest points on this circuit. It's so scary with these walls so close either side of you, and if there's any kind of problem, any kind of contact in the braking zone, you're probably both going to find the wall. Rob Henry just avoiding making contact there as he keeps Connor Brody behind him.
There's not much in this one either, and this battle pack's been the one where probably the most of the action's really been going on. Brody's been interested in having a crack back at Rob Henry. Henry's going to carry really, really high apex speed right there, but the exit's not going to be great, and that's going to allow Connor Brody a little bit of an opportunity. They've got to be careful, these two guys, as well. They are just about in the toe of Dan Patrick, just up ahead of them. Going to use a little bit of side draft as they cross the start-finish line. We're right on board with Rob Henry, and you can see the focus. He's getting squeezed, getting pressed to the edge of the road. Just about wheel-to-wheel contact on the run out of turn number 1. Not going to yield. Going to have to go the long way around the dirty side of the road, but he can carry speed if he gets out the other side. Great move from Connor Brody. They both gave themselves all of the space they possibly could have given and no more, and there was no contact race. Brilliant Porsche Cup racing.
Yeah, did you see Rob Henry, when he first popped up, he just shook his head a little bit and a look of disappointment. He knew that he hadn't nailed the exit from the final corner and he was in danger of losing the position. Well, now his eyes are going to be forward once again to try and get past that blackout OPR machine ahead. He's got a good line in the entry to the corner, but a little bit of oversteer there, and the exit is compromised, and he's going to keep an eye out here. Oh no, there we go, contact, and Henry will not be happy with that. He manages to recover, but well, I mean, looking at his face there, not betraying much emotion, but you can tell he's frustrated.
Yeah, you're always going to be frustrated with a situation like this as well. Unfortunate. That's what it is, unfortunately, sometimes, and it's not necessarily going all his own way. Racing is a cruel, cruel mistress, unfortunately. But in the meantime, it's just looking at and appreciating what Stefan McCartan's really doing at the moment. Just running his own race, all nice and quiet, comfortably sitting in third spot. And I can tell you, I've followed this guy for a fair while. I've known him. He loves his Porsche Cup racing as well. He's just had and the Blackout OPR team have just had a very, very strong endurance season. For those of you who don't follow the iRacing 24-hour calendar, it's set up to make sure that we can still get a race of 24 hours at a specific location in France, in southern France, just to make sure that we do get our iconic 24-hour race from that venue without using any licensing. Well, iRacing set up a 24-hour series that goes along with that. They've just come back and they've won the entire championship across all of the rounds. I think it was 6 rounds, one every second week or so. They've come back as the highest point scoring team across the entire season for that one. Big coup for the Blackout OPR team.
Yeah, that's crazy effort as well. A 24-hour race every 2 weeks, and to be able to get that, you know, that's a lot of effort, a lot of coordination, a lot of physical effort as well for all of these guys to put themselves through. Really fantastic stuff. Meanwhile, here's the battle for 10th. Hamish Cleland currently holding on to that coveted last position in the top 10, but he's going to lose it there. Runs a bit deep in turn 5. Taylor Mitchell almost getting into him as he came back on the track, and there goes Taylor up into the top 10 there. Nicely done. Just took advantage of a mistake, and he's paid dividends for it. Something you always got to look out for. Drivers making mistakes in front of you, but it's deep again from Hamish Cleland, and Mitchell saw him coming there. Ran a little bit wide.
Yeah, still going to have another go. You know what this does, though? Have a look at who's in the background of this one. Ewan Baker's starting to creep up on these guys. The margin's now down under 3 seconds, so if these two keep fighting all the way around through the carousel, he's going to keep taking a huge amount of time right around the outside. It's not often you see a driver take that level of commitment around the outside of the kink as well. Commitment, the key for Cleland, and he gets the job done.
Love that. That was great commitment from Hamish Cleland, and he's gotten it done beautifully around the outside at the toughest corner on this racetrack. Shows you how much that 10th place means to him. He's made a couple of mistakes in the last couple of laps, but when the opportunity comes, he gets it right back. But yeah, you're right. They have lost a lot of time to Ewan Baker on this lap with all that side-by-side running. Baker just popping into the back of the shot there, and he'll be almost in slipstream range. In iRacing, you start getting the benefit of the slipstream from about 1.5 seconds back, but it's when you're within a second of the car in front that you really start to get that speed boost.
Yeah, if it becomes noticeable at that point in time for Taylor Mitchell, his only option is to keep being aggressive, I think. Well, the problem is they've got 3 laps left to run, and on that most recent lap, Ewan Baker took 2.5 seconds out of these guys. It was not even close that he'd even be thinking about finishing inside the top 10, but if these guys keep this legendary stoush going, and legendary it is at the moment, well, I don't think they're going to be friends at the end of the tail end of the race. Alternatively, they might have grins from ear to ear as Mitchell's going to attempt to slice it back down the inside, pulls it to the inside. He is deep on the anchors down here, manages to get overlap by the time they get to the apex. But again, Cleland around the outside, Reese. That has been supreme. Defending from the outside is one of the trickiest things that you necessarily can do, and he's done it on a number of occasions now. He's also pulled the offense as well.
Yeah, it's nicely done from Cleland. You know, going a little bit deeper into the corners, carrying the brakes a little bit deeper, get the car rotated on the outside line, and then get on the power earlier. The outside line is not the worst place to be. You can get on the power earlier, the car straightens up a little earlier too, and you'll get the momentum out of there. That's exactly what we just saw from Cleland.
Keeping an eye up and down the field as well. This battle back up for the lead is it's just not going away, is it? Allen managed to go and nick that one back off Sabo. And now Sabo's just been hanging about. He's pulled just a little bit of a margin. It's out to 0.5 seconds at this point in time. And I can tell you, Sabo just ran a purple sector from turn 8 all the way down through to Canada Corner. So he's got pace in that car. Look, tow assisted, absolutely. That's certainly going to assist him any day of the week. But at the same time, he's still got a little bit of a pace. So the middle sector from Hugo Allen's been really, really strong. And yeah, he's got some of these guys are just going to go all the way to the end.
Yeah, they are fighting tooth and nail for the lead of this race. The faster of the two on the last lap was Hugo Allen, but there was only 0.03 of a second in it. Until Rafael Sabo, he is making good use of the slipstream at the moment. 2 laps to go at the front of this field, and I get the feeling, you know, this battle has already been simmering away pretty much all race, but it's really going to get up to a raging boil once that white flag flies.
Yeah, it's just underneath the water. You can see from Sabo starting to range back in again. So he's just starting to just apply a little bit more pressure. When that last lap starts, he wants to make sure that he's completely in control when he pulls the trigger. And the thing from Hugo Allen's defense games are going to step up a notch as are the cars running wide as they crest the kink down at turn 7 and run them down the hill. McCartan since 5 seconds back of these guys. Got to shout out again into each other in the final lap. Anything can happen. I'll tell you what, Reece, it's been a wild month of motorsport. I've seen last lap bingles, or last couple minutes worth of bingles in quite a few of them, including one that cost a couple drivers a trip to Spain.
Yeah, indeed. A lot of very unfortunate run-ins on last laps in the last few weeks, but we'll see if this costs either of these guys anything. They have absolutely no pressure from behind. Stefan McCartan is 6 seconds behind these two at the moment, but if there is a single coming together, one bit of contact that balloons into a crash, then at least one of these two is going to lose out on that chance for victory. Final corner, and then we have 1 6.5 kilometer stretch of American racetrack left to run. Allen leading as the white flag flies, but Sabo is right there with the slipstream. He's going to take full advantage.
I can tell you, by the way, just having a look, Ewan Baker is just about a second back off of that Mitchell and Cleland battle, so he's going to get to them, and it's going to be on the final lap. They will squabble, they will decide something on that final lap for sure. Sabo right underneath the rear wing now of the Porsche 992 Cup car. They generate a fair bit of downforce. There's not as much of the under tray, so they're a little bit quicker than a GT3 machine in a straight line. Allen looking for the drive off of turn number 3. does get a little bit of a getaway, but you would think he'd launch off the corner. Sabo is looking to the right-hand side of the road. It's going to be the outside when they crest the hill down here. He looks for the switchback, throws the dummy. Is there enough space? No, there's not quite. They make contact at the crest of the hill. Run down to turn number 5. He's deep. He's very deep. Pinches the front left. Bowls are wide. How far back's McCartan? Has he got anything left? And how cooked is that front left tyre?
Oh man, Zabo will be kicking himself for that. There was a perfect defense from Hugo Allen. The switchback was tried there, but he didn't leave enough space for him to get alongside. Obviously, since the cars weren't side by side at that point, it was all fair game. Ewan Baker's in trouble here. Oh, he's going to get into the top 10, actually. It was Mitchell and Cleland that were in trouble here. Fantastic stuff. It's a battle for race 2 pole position here. Currently, Cleland holding on to it. Oh my goodness. This is going to go off on the last lap.
Yeah, Ewan Baker's gone and picked the pockets of both these guys. Will nick a top 10 finish potentially on the final lap of the race. Cleland drops 2 spots now, was inside the top 10, now sits on the outside. It's pole position for race number 2, but at the moment I think he might want a few extra points. Mitchell runs a touch wide, by the way, down at the carousel. Hugo Allen in the final sector of the racetrack now, looking quite comfortable. He's going to have that race win just about locked up, and Sabo took him the distance, made him work for it, made him cover, and made him get right out of shape on the run down to turn number 5, and it was a stonking stoush for the ages. Hugo Allen comes out on top. Ewan Baker still sits in 10th, by the way. Cleland and Mitchell are going to run side by side down the hill into turn in the Canada corner. They just about made contact as their race leaders. They're going to cross the start-finish line and take that one away. That's Baker. Cleland comes back through. He's going to go ahead and nick 11th spot back off of Taylor Mitchell, but Mitchell's going to have a crack down at the final corner. Entering shallow at the final corner is always a risky prospect. Difficult to go too wide. Take out your hands, smash them together, because this was a phenomenal race-long stoush between Hamish Cleland and Taylor Mitchell. Cleland will take the one up from race number 1, but they'll be reversed for race number 2, and it's going to be Mitchell who'll be on pole position.
Wow, what a battle that was. Fantastic job. And remember, I did mention it was a battle for race 2 pole when Baker was in the midst of it. But yeah, it is the top 12 that invert for race 2, which it's interesting to see that Mitchell was going for the position, because he would have been safe for race 2 pole there. But every point counts in a finish in this series, and maximum points from race 1 going to Hugo Allen, 1.2 seconds ahead of Antal Rafael Sabo. That was magnificent stuff.
Yeah, phenomenal race number 1. 12 laps the duration there. Well, we've got an extra 10 laps for race number 2. We're going to have ourselves a little bit of a breather to calm down, because I tell you what, I might have to go grab the oxygen tank in the middle. Oh, boys. We're going to have an opportunity to have a quick chat to Hugo Allen yet again, and I guarantee you he's going to have some good words for that one, because the stoush was absolutely legendary between our front 2, and Reese has got Hugo on standby right now.
I have indeed. Hugo Allen joins us now. What a race it was from both you and Anton Raphael there, Hugo. How was the battle from your perspective?
Yeah, it was good. It's again, it's one of those tracks that you're not going to pull a gap because the slipstream's so powerful, so it doesn't really matter if you're the car behind and you make a small mistake. So I thought I'd sit in behind for a couple of laps, but yeah, Antel and I have raced each other a fair bit in kind of high level competition, so it's good to race him again. Just at the end there, yeah, I don't know too much about what happened on the last lap, to be honest. I was just driving in a straight line, got a little tap, but I'm not sure he meant it. But yeah, no, it was good. Good to get a win. Good way to start.
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic start to the night and to the season for you. But you're going to be starting in 12th place for race 2. It's going to be difficult, but you'll be taking advantage of the slipstream around here. How are you going to be approaching that first lap?
Yeah, I guess it's a controlled approach. I won't give too much away, but yeah, I don't know. It's you can pass at this track, so it's a big old race. We'll just see what happens, I guess. But yeah, I think probably the most important thing is just looking after the tyre and staying out of trouble, to be honest. Especially with the point system, the way it works. So yeah, just try and stay out of trouble and try and have a repeat of what we just had.
Yeah, exactly. Well, best of luck to you, Hugo, and congratulations once again on your victory. Is there anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to before we let you go prepare?
All right, look, again to you guys for setting the series up. I think it's really good, again, that we've got a series here, and a well-supported series, and again to MRP for helping me out.
Yeah, indeed. $60 MRP store voucher already on the cards there for Hugo Allen. Will he get the 200 voucher by winning the round? We'll have to wait and see, Scott.
That's the big key when we go racing here for the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League. Is lots of cash and prizes on the cards right up and down the field across race number 1, race number 2, and the series as a whole. Talking a little bit about what's in store for the drivers and the opportunities that they've got. $200 of Madden Racing Products store vouchers for tonight's round winner. But more importantly, what does this mean for the series? Well, it's $5,000 total prize pool for the overall series, and first prize, you're going to be netting yourself $1,600 in New Zealand cash for the series champion. Cold hard cash. You want to make yourself a name? You come on out to the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League and go ahead and win yourself some of that. Always going to make things nice and spicy. I tell you what, we've actually got our third place sitter on standby as well. We might grab an opportunity to chat to the man nicknamed by all his friends as the Milk Carton, mate. I can tell you, the Porsche 992, she's a little bit more aerodynamic than the Milk Carton.
Oh, just.
Mate, long time no chat. It's been really, really good to catch up with you. You feel good being back behind the wheel of the 992 Cup cars. This is sort of your bread and butter. I know you've been putting a lot of work into these cars over the years.
Yeah, man. No, it is good to be back. There was a little while there where I sort of thought this car wasn't really realistic to drive, but iRacing's put a lot of work into it, and yeah, it's really nice to drive now. Obviously, don't quite have the pace of the top two in that one, but we'll see how we go in the next one.
Mate, huge opportunity from race number 2 here, inverted top 12. I know that you've done a lot of race control work in the past, and you know all the pain that comes from reverse grid races, but what are your thoughts on reverse grid racing?
Oh, look, it spices it up. It means, the top 3 in my book in this league would probably be Lazarus, Ellen, and Sabo, and it means they actually have to work through some cars. Obviously, they've got a lot longer in the race with an extra 10 laps, but I love it. Personally, I'd love to see full reverse grids, but obviously half the field's still decent.
In terms of things here tonight, third place to start things off, you got Lazarus that's going to be starting ahead of you. Those other 2 guys starting behind. Is the plan to get aggressive? You're just going to be going for every gap that's necessarily available. You're going to be a little bit more, circumspect about the overtakes.
It sort of depends when and where they show up. I'm not going to be super aggressive T1 unless it's a pretty big gap. 22 laps draft is very strong here, and 22 laps kills these tyres, so probably a little bit more of a tyre save race this one. But if there's a massive gap, I'm not afraid to shove my nose up there and see what happens.
As usual, mate, you always come with a whole host of support from all of your friends that are out there taking the absolute mickey out of you, and I know quite a few of them. Any words that you want to give out to them when you've got the opportunity?
Up Frio for spotting me tonight, and Jake Edwards needs to get quicker.
I concur. Jake Edwards, get quicker, buddy. For those of you who don't know, Jake Edwards and I used to really give the elbows to each other when we were racing each other a very, very long time ago, so it's been good to see him in and around again. Thank you very much for your time, Stefan, and go out there and see what you can make out of that milk carton machine tonight.
Cheers, boys.
Oh, I love it. I love that entire group. I've been racing them for a very, very long time period. So I know how much of they've got a real larrikin style culture to them, all the Blackout OPR guys. And they love to take the mickey out any opportunity that they can get. Although, to be fair, what sim racing legends don't.
Yeah, indeed. I was teammates with Dylan Shepherd many years ago, and I certainly got a big taste of that. He's one of the top men at the Blackout OPR team. Well, we are going to have some fantastic racing yet to come here from the NZ Esports HyperFibre League. Race 2 coming up very shortly, but for the time being, we're going to hear a little bit more from our round sponsor, MRP.
Hello and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in and supporting our sponsors from Madden Racing Products. They've come on board to really be part of round number 1 of the finals of the New Zealand Esports HyperFibre League. We also want to say a big shout out as well to the New Zealand Esports Federation. It's been a pleasure to have them on board, not only for the iRacing part of things, but they're also big supporters right across the esports domain. Valorant, Counter-Strike, Rocket League, Tekken, Street Fighter, NBA 2K, and this one, for the first time, is going to be your iRacing Porsche Cup champion for 2024. This has been brought to you this year by the New Zealand Sim Racing Collective, a group formed by various New Zealand sim racing communities to try and bring bigger and better sim racing opportunities to New Zealand. And with that comes the support of the New Zealand Esports Federation. We can't do anything that we do without a huge family of everyone involved in not only iRacing, sim racing, but esports across the planet. I've actually personally had the pleasure of traveling to New Zealand all the way back in 2014 to commentate some of the New Zealand National League Legends Championships, and I can tell you the culture, one of the privileges that stands out as one of my defining experiences across my commentating career. So the fact that New Zealand Esports Federation stands up and promotes more and more events and works behind the scenes to keep things going, I want to say to everyone that is out there and taking part in both the event, also all the spectators to get along and give the New Zealand Esports Federation a big follow, big piece of support, as well as both of our sponsors, the HyperFibre from Chorus, and as well Madden Racing Products from round number 1. Because, yeah, like I said, the fact that I've got to journey to New Zealand to chat to a lot of PC gamers is just, it's one of the highlights of the things. I think you can sort of concur with that, Reese. You've done PAX events and stuff as well. It's the opportunity to go and meet people in person and then see the growth that comes out of that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I haven't had the opportunity to travel to New Zealand for events, but my mum's side of the family is from New Zealand, and Manawatu is sort of my ancestral home, so to speak, on my mother's side, so New Zealand is very close to my heart as well. We are about to get into the second race of the night, though, and we'll be getting ready for a 22-lap stoush here at Road America. And if that race result that we just saw was anything to go by, Scott, we are up for some fantastic battles and very exciting racing all through those 22 laps.
Yeah, 12 laps was an absolute arm wrestle for quite a few drivers up and down the field. Some drivers are going to have to come from the back. Some are going to have to settle themselves in and get the opportunity to try and defend from the front. It's going to be a top 12 invert, and that is going to mean your front row was the stoush of the race from race number 1 between Taylor Mitchell, who will get the pole position, from Hamish Cleland, who managed to nick 11th spot at the line. Ewan Baker and Dylan Jordan are going to make up row number 2. Cameron Dance and Russell Pepperonell are going to be row number 3. Before we get back to 7th and 8th, Samuel Sproul and Xavier Simmons on row number 4. Rounding out your top 10 at the back end was Corey Lazarus, and then we get on to the podium from race number 1, Stefan McCartan and Antel Rafael Sabo and Hugo Allen, the first 2 cars outside your 10. Then it's the drivers who didn't get lucky enough to be included in the invert. It's going to be Corey Croson from Nico Cordier. James Jordan drove back through the field to 15th. Tyler Williams will be alongside of him. Connor Brody and Dan Patrick rounding out your 18. From there back, it's Luke Bradley and Hayden Kirk rounding out your 20. Rob Henry and Mandela Pluck outside the 20. Outside of 23rd place is going to be Brendan Partridge from Daniel Patterson. Dan Turner and Billy Rowley are going to round out your field of 26 drivers, ladies and gentlemen, for race number 2. 22 laps, about 40 to 45 minutes worth of racing action coming away in just a few moments, and the lights are starting to come on at the front end of the field. Standing start for race number 2. Has Mitchell managed to find something to get the drive? He spins the tires, goes absolutely nowhere, and he's going to get swamped. Dylan Jordan's already got through to second place. Ewan Baker goes to the outside. Everyone's trying to crawl to the left-hand side of the road and go the long way around him, and I just hope he hasn't burned a hole in that clutch. Looks like he's shifting okay. Deep down into turn 1. Just about makes contact. Mitchell runs wide. I think Sproul went with him, and there's a huge amount of chaos at turn 1.
Oh, just getting back onto the track safely there was Mitchell, and he's fallen all the way back to second last of the runners here today. Oh man, that was a chaotic run through the first turn. We saw a couple of drivers behind Mitchell trying to gain some spots, including Corey Lazarus. He wasn't able to get the move done on the way into turn 1, but he's come out in a solid position. 7th, oh yeah, massive wreck just behind. Oh dear. Easy does it. Oh, the carton's off. Oh, no, the milk carton. There's a rip in it now. He's fallen into the wall at turn 5, and a few cars off at turn 5 as well. Much more chaotic start than race 1.
Yeah, and not only is he spilling milk everywhere, I doubt there's going to be any cookies to dip in that, because no one's going to want to lick that stuff up off the floor if a milk carton tumbles through the field. Cleland's going to lead the way. Ewan Baker ran him down in race number 1. Is he going to do the same again in race number 2? Dylan Jordan's managed to get his way through to 3rd. I tell you what, Sabo is 4th, and guess who's right there with him? Hugo Allen have already got through to 4th and 5th on the road. Insane from lap number 1.
Yeah, that's fantastic stuff. You know, winning sim racing is not just about being fast, it's about being able to pick your moves. But Sabo didn't pick the right move out of the kink there, bit of understeer, and he fell off into the grass. Remember, the tyres are still relatively cold here at the end of the first lap. They're going to have to wait a bit before they're truly in their real operating range, but there could be an opportunity for the both of them here as Dylan Jordan and Ewan Baker running wide off Canada corner, and Dylan Jordan is going to potentially lose the spot to Szabo here around the outside. Could be some potential for a move. Russell Pepperell and Corey Lazarus right there to take advantage as well.
Yeah, and have a look at Hugo Allen. He's lining him up. Now he's going to pull back across to the right-hand side of the road. Allen and Sabo are going to be side by side when they get down here to turn number 1. It is going to be a parking lot because they are just traffic queued up at this point in time. Pepperell, they're 2x2 on the run into turn number 1. Sabo gets to the inside. Allen's going to try and sweep in from the outside line. Little bit of a slide. They've got to protect the tyres. They were talking to us about this between the two. Races the run down to turn number 3. Finally, Sabo pulls ahead and manages to slot in.
Well, let's see if Allen can get the move done, though, because Szabo unfortunately messes up the exit of turn 3, and that's going to bring the opportunity for Hugo Allen round the outside of turn 5. He'll have the racing line. That's where the rubber is. That's where the most grip is, and he'll have the widest run into the corner. It's a battle of the late breakers between our race 1 top 2, but Szabo, big slide on the exit. Allen has to take to the grass to avoid.
Yeah, there was no way he was going to manage to get back across the track and get to the inside. Now Sabo's going to run it a little bit wide, carries the momentum though off the curbing, makes the approach though down to turn number 7, a little bit shallow. That's checked up Hugo Allen. Finally, these guys are going to settle it down. The problem for me though is Sabo has worked those rears incredibly hard in these opening couple laps. Now they're no V8 supercars for sure, but they definitely do want to keep the tyre temperature out of those rear tyres. So Sabo, keep an eye on him, could start to ail late in this race. If he starts to go, we'll all know why.
Yeah, indeed. An awful lot of heat being put into those tyres by spinning them up and sliding on the exits of these corners. On board with Xavier Simmons right now, one of only 2 cars in the field to still occupy the same position they started in. The other one being Russell Pepperell, which is another car ahead. So 8th place at the moment for Xavier, trying to chase down Corey Lazarus, who's up 2 spots from where he started. Oh no! Oh my lord! Dylan Jordan! That was a massive spin there in Canada corner, and he falls all the way down the field. Miraculously, it seems most of the drivers around him got away with that.
And that was all triggered because Pepperell went for a very, very late dive down at Canada corner. He pulled out at basically the last possible moment. I wonder whether or not Pepperell was about to just clout into the back of him and just had to roll off the brake, dart to the inside. He was always going to get in there hot. Indeed he did. So we're going to get a replay and get an opportunity to have a look at one of our first major sort of incidents of the race as we jump through the MRP instant replay. This is going to tell a little bit more of a story for this one from Dylan Jordan. You can just see, tries to get down in here. Have a look at how late, though, Pepperell dips down. And he was in hot. And that's what I'm saying. I think he was going to get into the back of him, and I don't think he had much of a choice. He was already too deep.
Yeah, it's just a shame, you know, a late move in the braking zone. You have to put some trust in the driver you're passing because they have to see you coming and they have to open the steering to allow some space for you. But sometimes there's not enough time for that to happen, and a small tap can balloon out into a massive incident. So Jordan's all the way back down in 20th position now. Cameron Dance gaining a couple of places back thanks to that. He was one of the drivers to fall down the order a little bit. There's that hyperstimulator chassis with the TUI branding on the sides. He does love his beer, does Cameron Dance, but he's too focused at the moment to have a brew.
Yeah, I mean, this is not the time that you want to be doing that. I mean, maybe an opportunity. Look at the lean in as well. You can tell that he's switched on. Cam gets quite animated when he is switched on. Like when he's really focusing, you sort of stop thinking about what you're sort of really doing. He's one of those drivers. There's a couple of them. Scott Gamble, V8 supercar driver, is another one, and I'll be working on a series that he's in later on tonight. When he's really focusing, he just drops his jaw and the tongue starts to hang out the race. There's a couple little bits and pieces. So that says to me, Cam is really trying to drive the wheels off this thing, and well, when he run wide at the kink, he's working hard.
You saw him glancing into the side mirror there to make sure that Xavier Simmons was still behind him with that slight mistake through the kink. There's so much racing going on here at the back end of the top 10. Corey Crossan, man, what a drive he has had. Remember, he was in contention for 12th place, race 2 pole in the previous race. Well, now he's under pressure from the likes of Nico Cordier and Mandela Pluck. Sam Sprout, who lost out quite a bit in the opening lap or so, is trying to make a recovery as someone runs off there. That's Rob Henry that's gone off, and wow, that's a massively slow re-entry onto the racetrack. He is going to fall down the order again.
Yeah, got our first penalty of the night too coming our way. I think Mandela Pluck's just picked himself up a drive-through penalty for contact. I believe that was on lap 1. Huge mistake down at turn 1 though for Antel Rafael Sabo as well. So he's made a big mistake. That's allowed Hugo Allen to get down to his inside as they actually run off of turn 3. By the way, they've tagged onto the back end of the front too. Baker is close and closing on Hamish Cleland. So Cleland's led 3 laps thus far, and yeah, he's going to be starting to run down. And have a look at Rob Henry. You can just tell he's just a little bit annoyed by that mistake. We've seen a mistake at the final corner from him now twice.
Yeah, it's a big shame for Rob Henry. I mean, he's a very quick driver, and you know, when everything goes right for him, he is one of the drivers who you look up to try and beat. But tonight has just not gone his way. He'll be hoping for more from rounds to come. So Mandela Pluck will have just gotten news of that penalty, and he's got a lot of cars ahead of him. It's always, oh no, oh dear, that was Dance getting turned around there. Contact, I believe, with Nico Cordier. That's going to be huge there for the number 6, and he's going to keep going, but regardless, Dance, one of the big losers of tonight so far, and that's some pretty hefty damage that I'm seeing.
Yeah, I do wonder whether or not that rear end might not be out of alignment. That might just be race over, because if particularly in the Porsche Cup car, if it's not all put together at the rear, they are a very difficult car to drive. So I can tell you no meatball for Cam from what I can see, but yeah, she's not looking pretty at the rear.
No, certainly not. Well, he's gotten back up to speed. I think he might have just gotten away with it, but there's always that potential. We're going to grab, once again, an MRP instant replay of that incident. So it happened at the Hurry Downs. Dance was on the inside here, and just a bit of understeer, and car on the outside. Front end gets tapped around, and oh yeah, that actually was quite a big impact with the tyre bundles, but I think it just avoided making contact with any suspension components, but we'll have to wait and see on that.
Yeah, he's just going to have to survive with it. There's not really much you can do about it. He's just going to keep the car out there, try and bank as many points as he possibly can, and carry on with life, because what's your other option? It's to call time on it. So, by the way, that battle up for the race lead, Ewan Baker's managed to get the job done on Hamish Cleland. That was on the race. I think Cleland might have led the lap, and I think it might have changed hands on the run down to turn number 1. But yeah, she's a 4-way stoush now, and this is an opportunity. If Cleland can just sort of stick with, he's not chasing the toe from Ewan Baker. I wonder whether or not he's just going to see this one on the run down to turn number 5 and just go, hey, this is a good spot. I'm just going to try and hang on to this one. Wow, how about the move though from Sabo, because he just slid through and said, all right, well, look, if it's on the table, well, I guess dinner's up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, didn't want to fall behind Cleland and have to take a couple extra corners to pass him. That's valuable time that he could have lost if he hadn't gone for the gap that was there. But now, Ewan Baker is the one who will have to face all of that pressure for the race lead. Hugo Allen could be looking at 2 from 2 tonight and grabbing the round victory, but we'll have to wait and see on that. Let's see what kind of lines they take through the carousel. Allen gives up a bit of time there in the middle of the corner. He was going wide and making it a double apex, as you can do at that corner, and has resulted in a good exit for him through the kink.
Yeah, I think that's the key. He's looking to try and carry the speed at the moment, but it nearly ended up with there being an opportunity. I think Antal actually had to grab the brake again just to make sure he didn't get into the back of him. That's not an overtaking opportunity, Antal. And he would have known that one. And I think he got a little bit spooked by it there at one point. Fields all still relatively close together, and we're on lap 5 of 22, I think, is the big key. I think it's everyone's just being a little bit more conservative in race number 2 and focusing on the journey, focusing on the duration. But at the moment, I mean, it was an exit from Ewan Baker, but I get the feeling this is just sort of coming and there's not much he's going to be able to do about it as Alan's going to pop out.
Yeah, and just run him as close as he can on the way past, and Antal, is going to try and get it done here at turn 1 as well. Looks like Baker just blended out of the throttle there to let them go. Roughly the same thing that Hamish Cleland did. So now the goal for Baker and Cleland is to stay in the slipstream of these two. But we've seen what kind of pace Alan and Sabo have when they are out in front. I'm expecting them to pull away here.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, Ewan Baker's not really had an opportunity. Remember, he was in the wars in race number 1, and right around probably where the meat of all the racing action was from race number 1. Can't believe Alan's actually going defensive this early. I mean, first opportunity, I guess, for Antal to really race him directly for the lead, but that sort of felt too early for me. If Antal had sent it, all right, yeah, no worries, have it. But yeah, that's going to keep both Ewan Baker and Hamish Cleland relatively close in terms of this battle. And there was a break pinched, but I think it was Alan there as well. So right now, if I'm in any of these guys' shoes, if I'm in Antal's shoes, I just want to feel his mirror. I just want to make him know that I'm here, but I'm saving tyre. I'm thinking about the last 5 laps of this race, not this period. We've already done all the hard work. That's put some energy through the tyre. Got to make sure I've got something to work with and survive with at the back end.
Yeah, exactly. Road America is notorious for being a track that eats tyres. There's so much high load cornering that is done at this place, and overheating the tyres is definitely an option. I'm just looking at the weather conditions at the moment, and the track has indeed heated up from race 1. It was around 26 degrees Celsius when we checked in on it before. Now it's up at 32 degrees, and the day is just continuing to trudge on in sim. We're coming up to almost midday in sim time, and that's when the sun gets to be its most intense. So the drivers will have to be very careful to drive as carefully as they can as time goes on. Don't want to get those tyres overheated, because once you do that, the car starts sliding, and once those tyres are overheated, it's hard to bring them back down.
Yeah, and the big thing I think at the moment that's keeping the track temperatures relatively tame is that we're heading into autumn in and around Lake Elkhart, Michigan, I believe, in the United States of America. So temperatures and certainly the amount of UV that's coming down on the track is not as high as it would be in the middle of summer. That I believe the Road America 500 event that was earlier in the year was incredibly hot, up around the 50 degrees sort of track temperature range. So that sort of tells you, it absolutely is cooler than it would be at this time, earlier in the year. So look, it's definitely warmer. That definitely changes the balance as well. You can overheat the fronts and the rears on this car. You can get a lot of understeery feeling. You can get a lot of oversteery feeling. You've got to manage both ends of the race car, and there are ways that you can tinker and tweak both.
Oh, Sabo just going for the lead on Allen, and it looks like they're going to trade back as we keep an eye on Xavier Simmons here as he tries to chase down Pepperell. But the trade is made back here for the race lead. There was an attempt by Antal Rafael Sabo, but ultimately coming to naught, and the cars occupy the same positions they did as before. But Allen's defensive again. Sabo is really dialing up the pressure here. You know what? This has actually brought Corey Lazarus right into the battle for the lead as well. He's come out of nowhere, and he's right behind Hamish Cleland. So, I mean, if these two at the front don't stop battling like they are, they're going to be under a lot of pressure from these 3 cars behind.
And I'll just give you something. I think this goes to the mindset. Look, I'm not the biggest Ewan Baker fan that's ever transitioned around the racetrack. He's exciting. Stuff always happens where Ewan Baker is on the racetrack. That's just the kind of guy he is. Very, very aggressive. I don't know if he's the most clean and concise kind of driver, but he always finds ways to get in other people's battles. But he's also the kind of guy that he's not just going to sit here and wait. If a hole presents itself, he's going to put the nose in. And I think he's waiting for an opportunity just to check these guys up just a little bit and perhaps sneak on through. I think Cleland's going to run a really, really clean race here. He's just looking to just stick with these guys. Any opportunity you can to run with them. But Lazarus was starting to track these guys back down, and I tell you what, the drafting games have already started as well in terms of this, so that the snaking down the front straight away, quite common at Road America. But yeah, Cleland was starting to be tracked down by Lazarus. I think he was coming. I think Lazarus was always going to get to Cleland, but this is actually keeping Cleland quite relevant.
Yeah, it certainly is. Cleland's still holding on to 4th place and still well within the fight as Connor Brody here is going to try and get the pass done on Nico Cordier at turn 1, and he gets it done beautifully. Slipstream, pull out, outbreak, and you're out of the corner ahead. But now the challenge is to try and keep Cordier back behind him. They've just traded positions for 11th, and Nico is absolutely monstering the exit of turn 3 there. He'll still be in the slipstream by the time they get down to turn 5. Once again, it's a case of, do we battle with each other, or do we focus on trying to catch up to the cars ahead? Because Crossan and Sproul aren't that far ahead themselves, and they're going to cost themselves time, with Sproul getting the move done at turn 5. A little bit of side-by-side running brings Brody and Cordier right into it.
Yeah, they've now just picked up the draft. They've just managed to pull them all the way back in, so now they are picking up that little bit of it. So I think Cordier's best decision he can do right now is just try and hang on, because I think he's getting a little bit of support and a little bit of defense from that's managing to keep him away from Dylan Jordan. So right now he probably just wants to follow single file for a couple laps, catch up to this battle pack, and then sort of make some decisions from there. The best thing he can certainly do is stick with these guys. Yep, Sproul gotten aggressive, moves himself one spot further forward. 3 seconds up the road to James Jordan. Jordan's managed to go with Russell Pepperell and Xavier Simmons. So we've got another 3-car battle pack just down the road as well. It's sort of forming into little bunches up and down the field, and Lazarus, by the way, still not being able to get that job done on Cleland.
Yeah, I think from Lazarus's perspective, he might just be waiting for an opportunity. If he senses that there's a clear pace difference between himself and Cleland, and it's costing him time to Baker, Szabo, and Allen, then he'll try and go for the move. But for the time being, just trying to feel it out. Follow in the slipstream, try and keep up the pace. If a move presents itself, then yes, absolutely go for it. But if I was in his position, I'd be sort of hedging my bets. I'd just be methodical with how I make my moves.
Yeah, just playing it smart. You definitely. The tricky part is you've got to try and get this done, but you've also got to make sure that you don't lose the toe. And the problem is Cleland's definitely slower than the cars ahead. So if you hesitate too long, you're going to drop the toe, and that's it. You sort of race over. You're relying on those guys back up ahead to battle. This is a really, really good corner here. He's got a trigger. I think he's got to pull the trigger right now.
Yeah, I think he has to, because they're really starting to pull away ahead, aren't they? So, yeah, he's going to go for it now. Can Corey Lazarus get into the top 4? Well, he's alongside. There is overlap, and he gets on the brakes. Hamish Cleland didn't fight that one too hard. He's obviously recognizing that Lazarus has got a bit of the red mist going and is going to try and fight his way forward again. But our top 2 continuing to get into each other here. Antal Rafael Szabo is racing Hugo Allen quite hard at the moment.
Yeah, it's really, really interesting, because this is something a lot of your go-karters will be very, very good at, is recognizing when to fight and when not to fight. And you can just see Szabo is just going, I want this spot, I want to be leading, and I want to be in control of the situation, because then I control my own destiny, right? I can't be sent on by you and Baker behind me. So he's sort of thinking about it and going, do I do it, don't I do it? But you can see that he's in two minds, which is really, really interesting to watch, because he thinks that he can get this one off of Hugo Allen. If he passes Hugo Allen makes a mistake, because Lazarus runs very, very wide at the kink, and you know, Hugo makes a mistake, and then Ewan Baker slots by. Well, all of a sudden Antel's going to disappear down the sunset, and they have to scramble to sort of catch him again. So it's catch-22, isn't it? Because you want to be aggressive, but at the same time, again, race 1, they worked really, really well to each other, with each other, drove everyone out of the race. This race, it's not sort of been that same sort of mindset. That 3rd and 4th battle has been a lot closer.
Yeah, I think one thing to also highlight is it's a longer race. We've got 10 extra laps to work with here. So if something happens, then there is time to bounce back from it. But like you say, catch-22, it's a very complicated situation that every driver on screen at the moment is dealing with. Do they fight or do they wait is the question. Someone who's not waiting is Sam Sproul and Corey Crossan side by side into the first turn here, and Sproul's teammate Connor Brody is going to take advantage. The door opens. All right, I'm going to try and walk through it, but apparently it's getting closed in his face for a few moments. Here comes Dylan Jordan as well to try and take advantage. Off the track goes Corey Crossan. Down into lucky 13th, but down into 14th and then 15th. There goes Stefan McCartan, who's actually made a pretty good recovery from his lap 1 dramas.
Yeah, back up to 14th, and look, he'll be sitting there and going, there was a lot of opportunities, something just happened. But that's Porsche Cup racing as well, particularly reverse grid racing. You talked to him about it, and he said, you know, it's tough, it's tricky, it's sometimes things aren't necessarily going to go your own way. He's very, very aware of that. He'll have a look at tonight and just go, what more could I have done? Well, he banked a whole bunch of points from race 1. That's the big key. You know, made sure that there was a lot of points on the table, that even when something does happen in race number 2, you just go, okay, I got some points on the table. That's the big key. It's going to be really interesting. Obviously, Hugo Allen's going to take the round at this point in time and looks incredibly strong, or it's going to be Antal as well. But I think that points margin in around sort of 3rd to about 8th, 10th is going to be incredibly tight, because some of those guys have had really strong race 1s, weak race 2s, and the shoe's on the other foot for the feature race as well.
Yeah, indeed. Corey Lazarus has gotten up into 3rd, by the way, if you haven't noticed. Obviously making the move on Ewan Baker earlier in the lap, and he seems to be keeping pace with the top 2 a bit better than Baker and Cleland were able to. So if Sabo and Allen continue to fight like they are, if there's a few other attempts at moves and they just keep losing those little bits of time, can't build up a gap, then Lazarus could certainly be in contention for a race win here tonight. We'll have to see as time goes on. 12 laps remaining in the race, so we've got the entire distance of race 1 left to run.
It's interesting to think, isn't it, that, you know, we've just sort of started the duration of race number 1. By the way, 20 minutes already ticked off in terms of race duration of this one as well. So by the time we get to the tail end of things, we're going to be racing for over an hour's worth of duration as well. Add in qualifying, all of a sudden that fatigue does start to come in. The benefit of the Porsche Cup, though, is the car keeps you very, very focused. You can't afford to really drop concentration too much, but it talks to you quite well. It does feel quite connected to the road, and you certainly get a really good feeling for that. It does talk to you quite well. A lot of feeling in the steering wheel. It tells you how the rear tires are sort of feeling as well. So a lot of opportunity for these guys, and you know, you're not gonna fall asleep behind the wheel. You know, something that's a lot easier to drive, say an MX-5, a Toyota 86, that are a lot more comfortable to drive. These things will bite you, and you're very, very aware of them at all times.
Yeah, Rob Henry's going to be aware of it, almost getting a tap from the rear there as Daniel Patterson draws alongside. We'll see what he can do from here. Oh, I've just seen a big problem for Dylan Jordan and Nico Cordier. They've gone off the circuit somewhere as Henry defends the position. There's Jordan getting back up to speed right in time for that battle we were just looking at to arrive on the scene. I think there might have been a coming together at that braking zone, and well, Dylan Jordan's already had plenty of dramas here today. He'll have to work his way back up from there. Once again, instant replay thanks to our friends at MRP. We will see how this worked out. So it looks like Cordier there trying his best to stay in position, but Jordan, oh, that was sort of half him sliding, half Cordier making contact.
Well, it was all kicked off because Dylan Jordan sort of missed the apex down at turn 5, so he was actually in deep, and you just saw that Cordier made the apex, did everything sort of right, and then on the other side, you're right, Jordan sort of activated the rear end just a little bit too much, didn't quite have the ability to get back to the power, and Cordier, by the time he sort of had that slide, Cordier was basically on top of him anyway, didn't have the opportunity to really react. Tricky one to rule on, though, is because you say, you know, always you got to sort of keep control of your car, but at the same time, front to rear contact is deemed as, you know, generally the trailing car's fault, but at the same time, you know, he doesn't end up in that position if Dylan Jordan makes the apex, but you just got to read those situations better as well.
Yeah, it's sometimes situations are difficult to read when, you know, you're concentrating on controlling your car and you're racing at high speeds. You're at the limit of grip through just about every corner around here. But reaction times are a big part of being a race driver, whether it's real or virtual. We'll look back a bit further here. The battle for the lead's still going on. Sabo getting into it over Hugo Allen a couple of laps ago, but I think that'll change in short order. Taylor Mitchell currently holding on to that 13th or that 12th place, sorry, as there's changes for position ahead between Jordan and Cleland. It looks like Hamish is starting to fall down the order after falling out of the top 3.
Yeah, falling out of the top 5 now, as well as he's fallen down to 7th spot. But he's done well. Look, I mean, 12th place from race number 1. He's going to be a lot deeper inside the top 10. And the big factor right now is where he sits on the road. He's actually got a fair bit of protection in behind him. There's not many cars that are actually making bulk loads of time behind him. So this is about where he's going to end up, somewhere between about 7th, 8th, 9th, somewhere sort of in that margin. He's got Russell Pepperell just in behind him at the moment. So, hey, look, I mean, when you start race number 2 on the front row, you sit there and you just go, yeah, cool, that's about where I wanted it to go. The other opportunity that always could have happened was he could have just been punted off to number 1, and that hasn't happened. So he's led laps today. He'll be happy with that one. He's the key for me from Cleland is he's known when to not fight the battle. There is definitely battles that he can fight and drivers he can follow, drivers he can try and hang on to a position with, but he's been smart in race number 2, and where he had that huge south with Mitchell in race number 1, he's been a lot more circumspect in race number 2, and it's going to net him points as a result.
Yeah, getting points and consistency is key in any racing series. And remember, there's only going to be 4 rounds of these finals over the next month or so. So there aren't that many opportunities to get those points. Once you've gotten into a position, try your best to hold on to it and just drive as safely as you can without compromising your pace too much. Speaking of compromise, how about Luke Bradley there, running right off the circuit at the final corner and going to lose those positions to Cordier, Henry and Patterson. Bradley is now back down into the position he started this race in.
Yeah, unfortunate for him, but hey, look, he's only got himself to blame, running wide at the final corner. We've seen that a fair bit tonight as well. Track temps stabilised at that 32. We haven't seen anything sort of continuing to climb, but we're starting to get, we went 12 laps in race number 1, but we're beyond that now, and the lap times in race number 1 did sort of start to fall away a touch in those final couple of laps. So it's worthwhile noting is that the tyres are certainly going away. The fuel burned off in race number 1, and that's what sort of covered it off. But we're going to go a lot further in race number 2. Worthwhile keeping in the back of your mind is, yeah, look, the tyres are going to be in significant worse condition, but at the same time, fuel's potentially going to make these cars a lot lighter, a lot more dancy. But still going to have to go that duration to see.
Yeah, we will. Dan Turner stands a chance of getting further into the top 20 here as Bradley was struggling to find his way back past Patterson there. Now right on the back and within slipstream range. There's racing no matter where you look throughout the field. Someone has somebody to race with. Apart from maybe Ewan Baker, who's all alone in 4th place right now with barely any pressure from behind. Flick back up further to James Jordan here, trying to catch Xavier Simmons. It's been a good round from Simmons, remember. He had a great finish in race 1. He's one of the drivers that I've noted has been one of the most consistent tonight. 5th place in race 1, currently holding on to 5th in race 2. It's going to be a good night for him if he keeps this up.
Yeah, but there's still damage to the rear end of that car, so something did happen to him on lap number 1. He's sort of been centre punched a little bit, and not brilliantly, blindingly quick in race number 2, but he's also not been slow. You're right, consistent's probably about the right word for him at the moment as he does defend off from James Jordan. Had to cover him down at turn number 1. Jordan's got pace at the moment. Took about 0.8 of a second out of him on that most recent lap. Says to me Simmons made some sort of mistake. That's extra tyre temperature. That's extra pressure. And oh, by the way, count Hamish Collins still in this battle pack. Still sits 7th on the road. He's matching with these guys. So not necessarily out of it. And again, he's going to have to cover because here comes Jordan around the outside.
Yep, Jordan on the racing line here for turn 5, draws alongside, but Simmons will keep it on the inside, only just, but potential for the over-under there from James Jordan. Wasn't able to get it done, though. And yeah, there's Hamish Cleland right there in the Frog Leap Juiced racing car. So a good consistent run from all of the drivers involved in this battle. And so far, the fighting has been clean. And that's something that I want to highlight. We have had our lap 1 tussles. We have had a couple of crashes and a penalty or 2 thrown some way of a driver. But largely, the racing has been very clean tonight, which is exactly what we want to see.
Yeah, and that's the big thing is, Porsche Cups, they're touring cars, but they're also designed to bang a little bit of doors and whatnot. There's been I reckon probably about the right amount of that, because you certainly can get aggressive. You can rub those panels, but at the same time, they're still a GT3 kind of spec car. They do get a little bit fragile at times if hit in precisely the wrong areas. But you're right, there's been not a huge amount of it. But at the same time, I don't want to see none of that. That's not Porsche Cup racing at all. You absolutely want to see those elbows out. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with the standards that come out tonight.
Yeah, a little bit of biffo never hurt anybody, but slightly too much, and you're over the line. But I think pretty much everyone in this field has towed that line or driven near it very nicely. So we'll see how this top 3 battle works out. This has been one of the cleanest battles on the entire circuit, and I think a big part of the cleanliness is there hasn't been much change in it in the last few laps. Sabo's still holding on to the lead. Hugo Allen sitting pretty in second, but Corey Lazarus is dialing up the pressure. He has run faster than Sabo and Allen for most of the laps run so far.
Yeah, so, I mean, he's right there, right in the picture, and he's not going away. I think that is the big key. If he can just keep relevant, again, remember what happened from race number 1 between our front two, is that they really squabbled and they really fought with each other on that final lap. He's going to be there to pick up the pieces. This time, Sabo's got control. Albeit we've got 8 laps, we're under 8 laps, we're going to be about 7.5 laps left to run as we get to the midpoint of this lap. But he's there, he's keeping himself in contention, and now Hugo Allen's the driver that's sort of forced to go on the front foot. The thing is, anything can still possibly happen from here, and Ewan Baker's only a couple seconds back down the road. Don't count him out of this one yet.
Yeah, he has lost out and is a fair way behind at the moment, but any kind of change in this battle, any tiny bit of contact will bring him right back into it. This race is far from over. We still have 7 laps to go once these drivers cross the start-finish line next. And it's been a good defense from Szabo, but he's gone a bit wide through the kink just there. That's going to give a big opportunity for Hugo Allen to find his way through at Canada Corner. And they'll just try and eke ahead, but Szabo will protect the inside. They will cost themselves a few tenths maybe to Corey Lazarus, who has the luxury of taking the racing line all the way through the corner. They continue side by side through Bill Mitchell, and oh no! Allen gets forced off the track and a big slide from Szabo. Lazarus gets into the lead!
Well, this changes things, doesn't it? This really changes the script. And now have a look at Hugo Allen sliding the rear end of the car as they come around the final corner. He is very much at risk of potentially losing the draft when they get down here to turn number 1. I think he's actually going to have to rely on Antal having a go at Corey Lazarus and trying to go for that race lead.
Yeah.
If he doesn't, he's very close to losing these front two.
Oh, very close indeed. This is going to be difficult for Hugo Allen unless something massive changes. And it's given half a chance to Ewan Baker as well, who will have noticed, oh, that delta has decreased quite a bit. Something's gone on up ahead. Well, looks like Szabo's getting a great exit from turn 3, and he's going to try and pass Lazarus back for the race lead here. He is classed as being ahead, and the momentum is continuing down the back straight here towards turn 5. Yep. Look for those braking markers on the right. He gets it done.
Yeah, and Hugo Allen looks at that and says, thanks, boys. I was nearly out of that one. Thank you very much. I'm back once again. I wonder how aggressive Corey Lazarus is going to be, because he's played second fiddle to these guys thus far. This is his first opportunity. So all of a sudden, maybe he's the driver that gets a little bit aggressive. Although, maybe he starts to get defensive as well. He just tries to hold back Hugo Allen, protect himself, then has a crack on the final lap of the race. We're still quite away from that at the moment. Just keep remembering in the back of your mind, Hugo Allen, big slide on that most recent lap. He has got to focus his next 2 laps on ensuring those rears come back down. Szabo has been very aggressive on those rear tyres, and Lazarus has just drifted up to these guys really nice and casually. I don't think he's put a lot of temperature into these tyres. I think Lazarus is potentially the guy to watch coming to the final couple.
Yeah, the crucial thing is, what do you have to fight with at the end? You know, you can be the fastest man all race long, but if you've burnt through your tires and you end up losing the spot on the final lap, then it was all for nothing, really. But in Corey Lazarus's case, keeping an eye on his tire temps, just not overdriving the car, nailing every entry, exit, and apex, and he's put himself in a prime position to potentially take victory. But yeah, keeping an eye on Szabo there. He certainly has been aggressive over the course of this race. He's trying his best to break the draft. One thing that I've noticed, he's been having trouble with his corner entries at the kink. You know, that time through that lap, not the first time we've seen him run completely off the track at the fastest corner on the circuit.
Yeah, and the tricky part is as soon as you run off there, you're compromised all the way down to Canada Corner, so it will make him vulnerable. How's he going to handle that with the race continuing on? Again, track temperature just climbed another degree, so there goes a little bit more heat in terms of the tires. The big key, though, was Corey Lazarus, and all of that was wide on that corner last lap. Turn number 3, missed the apex completely. That set up Antal to get back to the head end of this pack. The problem is, I said Lazarus might have tried the best able to sort of rock and roll these punches, might have best side of anything. He's not thinking that way. Alan senses front and he gets to the inside as he forced Lazarus to go deep. Well, Lazarus did go very deep, but controlled it nicely. Is he underdriving that car just a little bit? Don't know. Update as well, Daniel Patterson incident with Nico Cordier. He's going to be forced to take to the pit lane for a drive-through penalty.
Yep, that's only the second penalty we've seen all night. That again goes to show just how clean the action has been. The only other driver to get a penalty has been Mandela Pluck for his contact with Tyler Williams back on the first lap of this second race. No penalties from race 1, which it really stands out to me. Race 1 being the sprint, you'd expect the drivers to be way more aggressive and there'd be more potential for penalties. But yeah, this is an absolute class field that we've got here.
Well, the thing is, Reese, they were more aggressive in race 1. They just weren't making the contact, so it was actually really, really well done. The right amount of aggression, everything sort of pulled off again. Really, really happy with the driving standards that we've seen tonight because it wasn't... You were right, you've got to be aggressive, and I feel as if they could have certainly been more aggressive, but I think it met the circumstances that was in front of them. And we've already talked about not dropping the draft. Hugo said that. McCartan said that. You've got to not drop the draft around this track. It's so important to keep yourself relevant. So what that says to me is they did it perfectly. They sort of met their circumstances really, really nicely. And then we saw that amazing battle between Cleland and Mitchell finish off race number 1. Race number 2, circumspect. But that's the key for longer races as well. We're now down inside the final 5 laps of this race as well. And it's meant that we've got this awesome battle for our top 3.
And Corey Lazarus just continuing to bring the lap times down there at 2:07.5 on that lap, new fastest lap, with Szabo running 0.3 slower and Hugo Allen 0.4 slower than that. Lazarus is far and away the fastest car in the top 3, but it's a case of picking your moves. Lazarus has driven a pretty sedate race by the standards we've seen at the front. The battles we've seen between Antal and Hugo, they've been pushing the limits and they went over the limit. That's exactly what put Lazarus into this position. Corey's just been minding his own business and it's paid off for him.
Yeah, and it's probably worth noting a few drivers towards the tail end of the field. Remember how we were talking about Cameron Dance? I mean, he's still in this race. He actually got back to 21st spot. Done a phenomenal job. Stefan McCartan, though, inside the top 10, right? Inside the top 10. He was dead last on lap 1. Sits 9th on the road. The problem for him now, 5.5 seconds down the road to the next car. It is Russell Pepperell. Pepperell's getting a lot of drafting assistance, but McCartan is extremely quick through the middle sector. He's going to have to take a second lap out of these guys. But 4-car train, if they start to squabble, he's still in with a shout.
Certainly is. I'm very impressed with the recovery from Stefan McCartan. And remember, when he went off on lap 1, he got into the wall as well. That car has damage. He's been driving with damage to the front right all race, and it hasn't affected his pace all that much. He's been driving around that small damage that he's gotten, and it's really paid off for him with all of the chaos happening in the midfield.
Yeah, so, I mean, the other thing is being able to pull the trigger on moves with a little bit of less downforce is sometimes really, really tricky because you miss it. And where you'd normally be aggressive on the brakes, well, you've sort of got to pull that back a couple meters as well and say, well, I haven't got the downforce to quite get to my aggressive braking marker as well. So to be able to pull those moves off throughout the field, really smart driving, really heads up driving. But again, like we said, Blackout OPR just won 24-hour racing championship. That's the kind of skills that really lend itself well to that kind of racing package. Porsche Cup, a little bit different, but again, this is probably more up Stefan McCartan's real kind of forte. Is this car, this package? He really loves racing the 992.
Certainly does, and it seems Xavier Simmons is liking it as well. He's still holding on to 5th place over James Jordan. James up 9 spots from where he started. The only other driver to make more of a gain in this race is our leader, Antal Rafael Szabo, who of course started in 11th. Looks like There might be a chance of a move at turn 5, but it's a bit misleading when you're looking at it from exterior cameras because the track bends to the left a little bit before the braking zone. Sometimes the quicker line through is just a straight line, that sort of left bend, and it may seem like a car is making a move, but they're actually not. I think Simmons still has the slight advantage in this battle, but Jordan will have the slipstream and he'll be taking advantage of it when they get to Kettle Bottoms.
I think the big key is now going to be making sure he maximises he's close, and this is the closest that Jordan's sort of been over the last couple laps. Really good mid-corner pace that time through, but he just missed getting to the gas. He got to the gas just a fraction late on the run through the carousel that time. Now he's sort of starting to carry it back. They get to the kink here, another lift off, but the car ahead runs a touch wide. Yeah, he just starts making it back now. So that bad exit takes him about half to 3/4 of the straight length before he starts pulling it back in. That's the big key. The key for me, though, for Jordan, very strong under brakes. He's making a lot of times on the entry of the corner. It's the middle and exits that he's failing.
Yeah, and the middle and exit is so important around here if you want to get a move done. Super long straights mean that if you're narrow on the way into a corner and your exit is compromised, then you lose out massively. But that was a good exit right there from James Jordan. He used all of the curb on the exit of the final corner, and you see that Simmons is trying to break the draft here. He's running to the inside. He knows he has to go defensive for turn 1. 3 laps to go here in the feature. And Simmons will keep protecting the inside line here. Jordan not able to draw alongside.
I think one of the key factors right there was you saw Xavier Simmons looking down as well. There's something in the background. I wonder whether or not there's a pet or something that's just crawled up and sat down next to his rig. That's what it looked like, if I'm going to be honest. Either a pet or a cable. I'm going to say maybe a cable alongside the rig. So there's something not 100% right now for Xavier Simmons. There is something distracting. That's going to present an opportunity for Jordan as well. He's really closing right now.
Yeah, he'll be on the racing line again for turn 5. Is there any switchback? No. I think James Jordan is just biding his time here. He might be waiting until the final lap to make his move.
Well, they've shaken Cleland now. Cleland's just out of the toe in behind them, so that was an important marker for both of those guys. That's also important for Pepperell, because if Pepperell now doesn't have Hamish Cleland ahead of him with a little bit of a toe, that makes Cleland a little bit more vulnerable, and that gives him an opportunity. If Pepperell can get by, he can get by on this lap, it's enough time to potentially get onto the back end of these guys as well. So I think Jordan's stronger. I'm going to be honest, I really do think he's got the pace. The problem being he's just not got the pace in the right spots, and it's tricky to get the move done. What it does so say is for Jordan is for some of the other tracks that we've got on the calendar, that late braking potential, that's really going to come into his forte.
Yeah, certainly is. Well, through the kink once again, a little bit more curb usage on the exit there by Jordan. He's definitely got the line better than Xavier Simmons at the moment, but still not close enough for an outbraking maneuver at one of those characteristic heavy braking zones around this circuit. But again, wait until the final lap. I think that's when we're going to really see James Jordan go for it. Meanwhile, this has been going on up the front pretty much the whole time. A lot of weaving to break the draft from Antal Rafael Szabo, and that's something that always raises my eyebrows when I'm watching racing. It makes sense why you do that. You weave, you break the draft, there's not much of a chance for the other driver to slipstream, but you're compromising yourself a little bit as well. You're weaving, you're actually making the distance you travel down the straight slightly longer. You're costing yourself a tiny bit of pace. It's another balancing game that you have to play.
Well, you also create more friction on the tyres as well, and I think back to a recent moment at Sydney Motorsport Park, and pole position was actually decided in the V8 supercars by like 100th of a second back there, and I think it was Di Pasquale, whoever it was that got the pole position, actually said, I actually made a conscious decision to drive on the line on the right-hand side of the road. Less friction on the painted surfaces was something he was actually thinking about. Now, it definitely does come in to these sorts of things, because your speed that you carry through the turns, you can see it when you do NASCAR races, IndyCar races. This is one of the big things that we practice as IndyCar drivers, is minimizing wheel input to minimize tire scrub. So it does have an effect, is relevant, but breaking the toe just, again, plays with the mindset. It's so crucial, I think, to do, because it tells everyone, hey, I'm going to be defensive here as well. But when I'm a watching trailing driver, I always love seeing somebody breaking the toe. It says, I've got him. I'm in his head already.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what Corey Lazarus will be thinking, to say nothing of Hugo Allen as well, who still has a chance of getting back into second place if everything goes right here. Oh yeah, it is very close. Lazarus is going to have to go defensive here. Allen is going to draw alongside, but to the apex first is Corey Lazarus, and he's got all of that curb to use to maximize the exit too. So he is in a slight bit of trouble, but I think for the time being, Lazarus will be safe. But you notice how much of a gap that Szabo has gotten here in that second half of the lap. He has a great advantage as they're coming across the line for the white flag.
One more lap left to run, and I was just thinking, you read my mind there, Reese, was that battle between Lazarus and Allen, that's really allowed Antal to run away at the front end of things. He's actually half a second up the road. Hugo Allen pulls to within a car length of the rear bumper, just gets alongside when they get to the braking zone at turn number 1, backs out of the move, forces Lazarus to go on deep. Lazarus now making no time. He's going to have to do a lot down here at turn number 3. The exit's going to have to be supreme. If Allen wants to win this race, I think his chance might have gone, but how's the exit now for Corey Lazarus? It's reasonable. It's okay. He's making a little bit of time, but Antal has just got car lengths on car lengths, and he's going to be a tough one to overcome. Hugo Allen might be the driver that's looking to take the position. I tell you what, Antal's going to win the round if he wins this one, and they just finish as they are.
Yeah, this is a great position for Antal Rafael Szabo to be in. They all managed to avoid too much sliding on the exit of turn 5, but now here's where a lot of the time can be made up. This is the quote-unquote twistier section of the circuit. The straights aren't as long. There's more time spent in the corners. Maximum curb usage from Hugo Allen there. Not quite enough to get the momentum into the braking zone, but now here's the carousel. How hard do you push here? How much do you put the left tires through in this right-hand corner? Lazarus taking that diamond line. Allen's following him. Szabo also taking a sort of more middle-of-the-road kind of line there. Now it's time for the kink. This is one of the places with the least margin for error around this track, but they all nail it. Just a few corners to go. Will there be any moves at Canada Corner?
Well, it's the run down here. Hugo Allen gets a huge double draft, but that might be the final overtaking opportunity on the lap. It's going to take a miracle for either of these guys to rob it from Antal Rafael Szabo. He pulled the move in the middle section of the race, and he just sat quietly in the lead. A mistake from Hugo Allen relegated him back to third spot. He needed to go for the move, probably with about 3 laps left to run, but he was very, very patient, didn't want to do it. To the final corner, the run up the hill, the run to the line, and your round 1 feature winner is going to be Antal Rafael Szabo. He's going to take the round as well. First and second on the night. Corey Lazarus gets back from a disappointing race number 1 to finish in second spot in race number 2. And Hugo Allen wins the heat, but he cannot take the feature. Will finish to round out the podium in third spot. Ewan Baker home in fourth. And how about that final couple of laps? Not the gangbuster that we saw from the heat, but I tell you what, the racing right the way through, Reese, was just brilliant from the top to the tail.
Yeah, it was a thinking man's race, that one. Really liked it. The action, it came thick and fast, but very steady as well. And how about Xavier Simmons putting on a mammoth defensive drive there versus James Jordan and Hamish Cleland to get 2 5th spots out of this night of racing. That's some solid points that he'll be able to carry forward to the remaining 3 rounds.
Yeah, think about Stefan McCartan as well. 3rd place in the heat, 9th place in the feature. So he could drop in terms of the point standings as well and the round as it stands. But Antal Rafael Szabo confirmation will take the round victory from Hugo Allen. Lazarus is going to come home in 3rd, and then it's sort of going to get a little bit jumbled up because the order's just been so shaken up. James Jordan, how about that drive though? 15th to 6th from the feature. He'll be very, very disappointed with race number 1. There will be a lot of question marks put in his favour of saying that could have been a phenomenal race. That could have been a phenomenal round. There could have been so many more points put on the board here tonight. But hey, gets deep inside the top 10. But up front, it's just brilliant racing, Reese, I think was the big key.
Yeah, certainly was. There's your top 10 then. Szabo from Lazarus, only 2/10 in it at the end. The top 3 covered by less than half a second, way less than half a second. Ewan Baker, quite a distance behind, back to 4th, but then Simmons, Jordan and Cleland all finishing within a second or so of each other. Pepperell getting into 8th spot. Obviously, would have been hoping for a little bit better considering he started 6th, but it was still a solid race from him, and the brilliant recovery from McCartan to finish in 9th spot. Sam Sproul, meanwhile, rounding out the top 10. There were some dramas there in race 2 that he couldn't quite recover from, but still, getting 2 top 10s from the night is worth celebrating.
Yeah, absolutely. That comes with a whole bank of points. We're going to get the opportunity as well, ladies and gentlemen, to have a chat to our round winner. And we've already managed to speak to our race 1 winner with Hugo Allen, so we might just have a quick chat to Corey Lazarus as well. Confirmation of championship standings. Well, after a first place from race number 1 and a third place from race number 2, Hugo Allen misses out on leading the championship by 1 point. Antal Rafael Sabo manages to take a second place from the heat and leads the championship with the race win from the feature. 51 points, plays 50. Corey Lazarus will be a little bit disappointed in terms of his race number 1 results, because 4th place means that he sits 2 points further back off of those top 2. He'll be looking to mount a comeback in round number 2. Xavier Simmons has managed to slot his way down into 4th in terms of the point standings, and the recovery drive from Stefan McCartan means he sits 5th on the road. Ewan Baker's 4th place finish from the feature will mean that he manages to hang on to 6th place in the championship. From Pepperell, Sproul, both single point margins on both of those. Hamish Collin down in 9th, and Dylan Jordan rounds out your top 10. So phenomenal racing action from everyone involved there, and now the celebrations, let them begin. And Sabo is thoroughly enjoying that one. It was clean in terms of both races. Had a couple of opportunities to nick the race victory in race number 1. Not quite able to do it on the last lap, but that one will still be remembered for a while, Reese.
Oh yeah, certainly will. Just, I mean, we've already said it many times. Brilliant action all through the night. And the NZ Esports HyperFibre League getting off to the best start it possibly could, in a broadcast sense, of course. These are the finals of the tournament, and we've already had plenty of racing go on off the air over the last few weeks. It all comes down to this. Man, what a drive it was from the number 92.
Yeah, indeed it was from Antal Rafael Sabo. Strong performances from qualifying series, and manages to stick it in for a very strong round number 1. He's going to be the driver that everybody is going to be chasing as we head through the 4 rounds that are going to cap off the series here for the New Zealand HyperFibre Esports League. It'll be the big one. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take an opportunity to chat to tonight's second place from the feature race, finishes 3rd on the round. Corey Lazarus now joins us up in the booth. Corey, tough racing in race number 1. Didn't necessarily get away as cleanly as you necessarily would have liked. That led to falling back and just being amongst all the goings on from that first race, and that was the big key. You just couldn't get clear at the front of the pack. You didn't have the opportunity to latch onto those leaders.
Guys, good evening, guys. Yeah, it was a bit of a pity actually at the start. We just sort of burnt the tyres up with those little incidents, and I was probably just a bit nervous and trying to push a little bit too hard too early, and the tyres were pretty well cooked for the rest of that one. It was a matter of more hanging on than trying to progress any way forward. I couldn't even catch up to my teammate Steph. It was a battle.
Mate, in terms of things, though, feature race, you managed to cut your way through the field very early on. Reasonably good start. There was a number of drivers with issues up ahead. But the thing about Porsche Cup racing and inverted fields is they can be a little bit of a lottery, but you also sometimes feel in control of your own destiny. Like you said, your teammate Stefan McCartan just didn't get the opportunity in that feature race, but that sometimes goes in your favour, as it has done here tonight.
This is true, yeah, and the feature race was very taxing emotionally and mentally. It was those two boys, Hugo and Antal, are just so fast. It was a really tough one. Yeah, I got lucky with some traffic and had a good spotter in my ear, just keeping me cool, and it was a good, really enjoyable, good race.
Mate, in terms of things, I'm going to give the floor to you. Who would you like to give a shout out and thank you to here tonight?
Yeah, thanks to everybody that's putting on the broadcast tonight. I'm sure you're doing a great job, and the event organisers for organising it, and obviously my team, the Bopar boys, everybody behind the scenes. They will know who they are. They've been terrific in the lead up. Lots of support, and That's about it. Yeah. Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you very much for your time, brother, and we'll see you again next week for round number 2. We'll take one step further forwards in terms of our round standings, and we'll have a quick chat to Hugo Allen, who's on standby now.
Yeah, he is indeed. Welcome back, Hugo. Well, things didn't quite go to plan for you in race 2, but still second out of the round. All up, I think, a pretty good night.
Yeah, that's good fun. Good racing with those couple of boys. They race pretty well. So yeah, no, it was good fun. Yeah, just enjoying being in a competitive series again. It's good.
Yeah, things did get a little bit over the line in your battle with Antal in race 2, but I suppose that's going to happen. I suppose part of it is due to the nature of the track as well. It can be very hard to run side by side here.
Correct. Yeah, it's reasonably narrow, this track. You're right. And it is. Yeah, it can be hard in places to run side by side, but at the same time, like, you know, it was good hard racing, and I certainly wouldn't have done anything differently. I was just doing my thing. But yeah, I guess we'll just let the stewards look at that one if they want. But yeah, look, it may have been netcode. I don't know what it was, but yeah, good racing. I'm enjoying it. Yeah, as you say, it's not ideal to finish third with the point system and have Antel finish first, because it gives them a point in hand. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm just having fun, so happy me.
Yeah, no complaints from you there, Hugo. Well, next week we go to Hockenheim Ring for the second round of the finals. What are your thoughts on that place? It's a very flat technical circuit, very different to Road America in many places, but I think the slipstream's still going to be pretty important there.
Yeah, exactly the same. Exactly the same down the big straight, and then coming out of the hairpin as well. So, yeah, I looked at the calendar. I thought it's going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those series where it's not necessarily who's got the most pace, who's going to win, but it's more about who races the best and who stays out of trouble. So, yeah, look, I look forward to Hockenheim though. Good track, and yeah, special track for Porsche as well.
Yeah, indeed it is. The Porsche Experience Centre is at the Hockenheim Ring. Well, thanks very much for joining us once again, Hugo, and congratulations on your results tonight. Hopefully we'll chat to you again next week.
Thank you, mate. See you next week.
Hugo Allen, the heat winner and second for the round there, Scott. And finally, it looks like Antal Sabo is going to be joining us very shortly here, the round winner of the first round here at Road America.
Antal, mate, congratulations on taking away the feature race victory and as well the $200 voucher from Manon Racing Products, mate. Winning the feature race was quite crucial, but Hugo also had to finish third in that one as well. The battling between you two right across the night was just supreme. Lots of room left, little bit of paint traded, just so much respect for each other. And he said the same about you. You guys have raced each other for such a long period of time, and it's always been close, tight, and tricky as well.
I've always loved racing Hugo. He's always been awesome to fight side by side with. Yeah, there's always a lot of respect between us, and yeah, history will show that. He's a super fast driver, so I'm just having a lot of fun, really, driving up top. Yeah, having a lot of fun. Very interesting car to drive, too.
Mate, in terms of things, Road America to start off the season, there was a lot of support, actually, we saw from the YouTube chat as well, coming in to say, hey, man, where's Antal gone? Because in qualifying, that last lap of qualifying, you left it to the dying stages of the second of the session because you were set up to start outside the 20s, mate. How were the nerves in quali?
Yeah, unfortunately, so I rolled it in very easily. I lowered the car in very easily with managing the temperatures and the tires, because it takes a while for the car to kick in. So I was just sort of getting in the groove, getting the car in the right window. Unfortunately, my first real push lap, I had a massive lock up, which screwed one of my inside tires, and then I had to take about a lap or two for it to come right. So it left it to that last lap. It was a little bit too close for comfort, but glad to pull it in second anyway and have a good start in that first race, heat one.
Mate, the big moment from that first heat race was the contact with Hugo on lap on the final lap of that first race. Looking for the big switchback, didn't pay off in race number 1, but I mean, you guys had the opportunity to go at it in race number 2. So like you said, a lot of respect that's been shown. Not afraid to trade paint, I think, is the big key from you guys. I'm assuming at the end of these sorts of things, it goes wrong. You've got the respect level for Hugo. Should it go wrong later on in the season, say, hey mate, look, that's racing. I'm sorry. You're sorry. Let's go again.
Yeah, of course. It's the trading paint thing, but as long as you don't taking each other off the track. That last one, the tires were getting really hard to manage. We were trying to fight. We had Corey on the backside of us, and we were just trying to sort of settle our positions. Unfortunately, the tires didn't hang on for me, so we both sort of ran off track, but we got ourselves back together, and we still got a good result for the team. So happy days. No one's in the fence. No one's in the barrier. But no, there's always going to be a lot of respect between me and Hugo, and yeah, with the fighting hard side of it, really showing. So I hope that put on a very good show for everyone at home.
Mate, finally, the floor is all yours to give the thank yous and sponsor shout outs that you'd like to hand out.
Big thank you to MRP Sim Racing for having me aboard for another season. Real pleasure to drive for them, and being a Hugo's teammate as well for the season. And big thanks to Ike Security as well. Shout out to them.
Mate, thank you very much for your time, and Sal, congratulations on winning round number 1. You have a 1-point lead in the championship. Looking forward to round 2.
Cheers. Thank you very much, guys.
That is going to bring us to the conclusion of round number 1 of the New Zealand HyperFibre Esports League. Racing action Porsche Cup cars from Road America was tough and intense. Reese kicked it off, though. We're off to Hockenheim Ring for round number 2. Similar kind of layout. Tough, tricky section in the back half of the lap. Got to bounce it over the curbs in sector number 1. Reese, this is going to challenge the drivers as well.
Oh, it certainly is. The Hockenheim Ring's been through many changes over the years, but for my money, the modern version of the track is great for racing. And I think another, just like Road America, it's another circuit that's going to be very important on the brakes. I'm waiting to see what kind of chaos erupts on the first lap when everyone slows down for that super tight hairpin at turn 4.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, you'll have to join us next week as we go racing for the New Zealand Hyper Esports League, who is going to be the first ever iRacing Porsche Cup champion for the New Zealand Esports Federation. You'll have to join us across the journey. 4 races, 4 rounds, concluding with a race at the Nürburgring on the 10th of October. I've been Scott Rankin, joined by Reese Gardner. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us tonight. We'll see you again next week.